I have my buddy Johnny joining. He's in the green room right now. I'm going to get to him in a second. But it's a perfect time for him to join unknowingly because I've been battling my ego all week long. A lot of comparison, a lot of ego, a lot of low self-confidence. And I wanted to talk to Johnny about that a little bit because he just always knows how to set me straight. So I am going to add him in. And you know what? I don't like you on the left. We're going to switch you over here. How's that? Can I hear you?
You tell me. Can you hear me?
Oh, it's amazing. The
Bada boom.
dulcet tones of Johnny Edward. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well, all in all. I mean, yes, I am alive and I am well and I am conscious relative to my state of being right now. That's not cryptic.
No. And I'm not going to make you explain that at all because I kind of understand it the whole way. So one of the things that's really funny is on Instagram right now, we are being seen like not at all, I don't think. And the reason I say that is...
Are we framed out?
We're framed out, right? So I'm going to see as we play, as people on Instagram hear this, I'm going to see if I can play with how this all looks. I don't know if it's going to work, right? But while I'm doing that and I'm playing, and rather than listen to me just kind of extemporaneously try to make it through, how's your week been?
That was a 6-syllable word, by the way. I just had to count that out on my hands.
Extemporaneous?
Yeah. I was like, no, it's been good. I'm trying to like wrap up a bunch of loose ends here before heading out to the East Coast for, the first half of November. So it's always the push, but I feel like I've been more obsessive recently than in the past, which is good in some ways, but also crippling in others. But outside of that painfully disgusting, nauseating attention to detail, things are good. And I've just been in motion more than anything else. I did sort of a family ceremony thing for my stepdad. I spread his ashes.
Yeah.
And it wound up being better than I thought it was going to be. And I thought it was just going to be this sort of stick in the mud, knife between my ribs twist. And it wound up being very liberating and powerful and brought me some peace that I have needed for a long time now. So that was reassuring. It sort of restored my faith in some sort of universal construct a little bit.
It's got to be heavy, right? So we don't take enough time to think about the gravity of a lot of those moments, right?
Yeah,
and kind of what they mean. And a lot of times I'll go to a funeral or I'll go to a wedding and everything's great and you're in the emotion of the day, but then you just kind of forget about it. So I'm glad you were able to kind of take that time for you as you needed it. Going forward, do you feel a sense of peace? Do you feel like now I can kind of move on and view it differently?
I hope so. I mean, at this point I do. Obviously, only time will tell. But, he was a big trail runner and hiker. So I went up to a place in the mountains in Colorado, and it was this beautiful vista of the Front Range. And there's a bench there, and it was really nice. So I spread his ashes and left a little sort of memento. But the wildest thing was a bee landed on me right after I spread his ashes. And we're talking like almost 11,000 feet elevation. We're talking near freezing temperatures, not fucking bee weather. Like it was an alpine bee of some sort, like a badass bee, but it literally landed right on my hand as I was sitting there and just sat on me for about 3 minutes. And I was looking up the mythology about bees relative to death in Celtic mythology and Egyptian mythology. And really in those specific cultures and those mythological belief systems, it's all about the soul having passed on and finding peace. And so I felt this sense of that too. So I felt so wrapped up in this, and how do I honor this man and how do I honor myself? And this bit, like, are we honoring another person solely out of obligation or because we genuinely want to, and what we have to work through to get to that point? So yeah, I definitely feel lighter in a really tangible way. And I have been feeling heavy as fuck. So that reduced weight is very, very nice. And I'm very grateful for it.
I'm really glad to hear that, man. I think it's been a really strange week. And I'm going to apologize for the people on Instagram. It's probably easier if you go over to Facebook, or I'm also on YouTube. If you look at my Facebook profile, or you go to the Stone Tree Creative YouTube page, you can see the whole display of Johnny and I I didn't put it in vertical mode. I probably should have. But getting back to what you were saying, yeah, it's been a heavy week, man. I know a lot of people that I've talked to have felt like something's been off. Now, I'm not going to get all like white girl Ugg boot crystals sort of weird woo woo about all this stuff, but
Namaste.
it feels like, Mercury's in Gatorade and, all this stuff. But there's been this heaviness that I've felt. And I don't know if it's pending world stuff, if
Yeah.
it's the election coming up, if
Yeah.
it's lack of business or people ghosting and all the things that are kind of going on for creatives. But I know for me it's been a big like ego comparison week, because I find when I get slow, when I don't have something to do, when I don't have a project or a video or a client coming in to do photos, if I don't have something that I'm producing, I feel like I should be doing something more. And when I
Yeah.
don't, I feel like I'm wasting time. I get low, that everybody else is doing something and I'm not, that I start comparing myself and going, how does he get all the work? How does she get all the work? Oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't even know about that contest, or this is going on. And why did they get that? And it's all ego, 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 right? And I have a really hard time with it. So I've been taking Sue Bryce's personal brand course, which has been really amazing. She did I think I talked about this last time. She does a 2-day course, and then when you sign up for it, she does 8 weeks of live coaching. And the
Yeah.
cool thing about it is the live coaching has brought me more than the original content. And the reason I say that is she dives in the live coaching to the real intricacies of why you're not getting stuff done or why you're not doing the things that you want to do. And she nailed me this week on ego, on
Mhm.
being so competitive and letting that go rather than just doing what feels good and being in alignment with it. Do
Yeah.
you ever feel like you hit that point where you're not in alignment and you're not really producing the work that you want? I know you're prolific and you're just kind of like, oh, I've got 12 minutes. Let me just make 7 editorials. I know like your level of production probably increases when you feel that way. But
Yeah.
I'm really trying to understand, am I off the reservation? Am I the only one that feels this way? Or do you ever get to that point where when you're low or slow that you start to compare yourself? And is that just a state that we all fall into? What do you think?
I mean, I believe it's a state we all fall into to varying degrees and for different reasons. I mean, I know for me, what sort of happens is, if you're the type of person who I would say I thrive in high pressure, I would say I thrive on deadlines, I would say I
Yep.
thrive in chaos. So even when I think about things getting slow in my mind, I'm like, well, what I really want is for things to fucking slow down. And then they slow down, and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my mind, my
Right.
body, my world? And then everything starts setting in. But for me, I hyper fixate. So when I'm in motion, my blinders are on. And then as that starts to come down, the blinders come off, and I'm suddenly hyper aware of everything that's been sitting in fucking periphery for an extended period of time. And I'm like, oh shit, maybe some stuff I haven't dealt with. Oh shit, some stuff I forgot about. Oh, the rest of the world. Oh, suffering. Oh, joy. Oh, achievement. Oh, all of these things sort of just start fucking coming in like a calamitous fashion. And yeah, the comparison thing is a big, big issue for me. And it's still to this day, and it doesn't even necessarily align. Oftentimes, if I'm slow, I just have more time to spend comparing. So it's just almost a matter of physics or metaphysics there. But yeah, I look around and I'll see things, and I do the same bit. I'm like, well, I'm in this place. Why can't I be in that place? And it's also ego. But I think as you were talking about this, something was churning inside of me. And I feel like I know you pretty goddamn well at this point.
I'd like
And
to think so, yeah.
unfortunately, but but no, come on. But I think we're both very much of like the caretaker archetype, and I think a lot of artists are. So we do for others, that can devolve into people pleasing, bending over backwards for other people. I do that so much, and I think there might be almost sort of a pendulum swinging balance effect that comes into play, because if I'm not in motion and I just am not in proximity to be of service to other people, I sort of come out of that mindset, and then I think because I've been so I mean, there's probably even ego at play there, but I've been so non-self-serving that then I become like overly self-serving once I come back into myself. And it's I've given so much away, I just fucking want. And if I don't have, then I go on the defensive going, well, why don't I have these things? And it's not the world. And it is ego, but I think it's also just an energetic imbalance because I'm constantly giving so much. I'm constantly playing the role of the martyr. I'm constantly trying to save and rescue people. I'm constantly looking out in the world and being like, oh, I want to be a counterpoint in this industry and in society and everything else. And that's so taxing. And I'm so invested in that I don't tend to myself. And then all of a sudden I come back out of that and out of that active state of giving. And I'm just like Cookie Monster, nom, 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 like I want to consume. And then I see other people who are in a place of consumption and there's almost a vindictiveness about that. And that's not them, it's me.
Yeah.
But as you were saying that, I'm like, shit, I think it's just for me really evident of the fact that generally speaking, I tend to give too much and not even not get enough because I get a lot from a lot of fucking people, yourself included, and so many people included. But it's I give too much and I don't allow myself to receive enough. Because when I'm in giving mode, then I'm like, well, my merit and worth is tied to my giving, and that's precluded by my receiving. So if I'm giving, I should just give, not realizing it's like a dual bandwidth. Like I can be receiving and giving at the same time. And I sort of close off that one floodgate as I open the other, and then things just sort of fucking swing out of balance.
Yeah, you know, the receiving is a weird thing. I think I'm just going to add a couple of comments. Natalie's saying it's been really amazing talking about the Sue Bryce course. I'm in the same workshop. I've gotten so much out of the last one. Kelly's in here. Hey, Kelly. Jeff, my man, how are you? Harvey's talking about my Astro photo. Kat's in there. What am I listening to? Oh, she was talking about the AI stuff earlier. So yeah, the receiving thing is a weird piece because we all need to receive a little bit of, like, we all give so much, right? And the goal is, or the hope is, maybe you'll get a little bit of that back.
Yeah.
However, when you're depending on the reciprocity of it, when you're depending on that to give you that level of self-worth or self-value, that's where it starts to get gray and wander into that comparison and competition and ego, right? When we're making sure that if I'm not going to put this out unless I get something in return, the expectation of reciprocity is, I think, that's a fine line to walk, because unless you're aware enough to know that, oh, this is why I'm feeling this way, is that not because I'm not receiving and my cup isn't being filled by the generosity of others through just their being good people and us being surprised by that. When there's the expectation of reciprocity, hey, I gave you all this, give back to me, then you're really not in a place of service. You're just kind of, you're doing it in the hopes of getting something out of it. And I think that small shift in energy, I fall into that trap all the time. Why am I doing all this work and not getting it back? Why do I keep putting myself out there? Instead of saying, all of this stuff that I'm putting out there makes me feel good. Makes me feel good. I don't give a fuck what people think, right? And it makes me feel good to be doing the things that I want to do. I battle with this a lot, and I always have. I think it comes from maybe not getting that enough when I was younger. Maybe it's because I live alone and I don't have a partner and I don't get that on a daily basis, right? My dog loves me, but those conversations don't last very long. She gets bored very easily.
Really one-sided.
It's very one-sided. And I can never argue with her. So I think when I don't get all of that, I devolve much more quickly. When I'm in a state of flow, when I'm around people that really inspire me energetically and creatively, that I feel much better and I do more with less expectation. When I have a client in front of me and I know they're just digging the vibe and that everything's going really well, I don't expect a big sale. I fall into the place of, let me just do what I do because they're loving this. Don't fuck this up for them. Right? They're, and I don't mean that like I think I'm going to take a bad photo.
I know. It's a matter of fact. Yeah.
But it's like, don't do anything to screw this moment up, because what you're doing is giving someone so much.
Yeah.
Let them have this. They need this, right? And as we're talking, I'll pull up some more comments. Doreena's saying that's ego. Give to give, serve to serve, create to create, and do not have any expectation. Always comes back in the ways you least expect. I agree with that 1,000%, Dorina. That's the whole point of this thing. And for those of you listening on Instagram, I'll try to keep things in the center so you can see half of Johnny and half of me, and then a comment in the middle.
Oh, so are we like Two-Face right now? Or
no,
we like
you can see my right shoulder and your left shoulder, and or
like
the other way around.
Speaking to the ground.
Yeah, there's just a split down the middle.
I'm just going to move back and forth as we're talking.
Anytime you want to talk, I'll just kind of throw you on solo, and there you go.
Windshield wiper.
So I think, let's come back here. I think, that ego stuff, and Kelly's saying, yeah, most of it stems from childhood. I agree 100%. I mean, I can trace all sorts of shit back there, right?
You and me both.
Yeah. So, and it kind of ties into when you joined tonight, thinking about all that stuff from childhood and thinking about like all it comes flooding back. And that's why I was curious as to, did anything come forward? Did anything float to the surface? Right. And, but not to belabor that point, I think it's just been a really strange week for me overall, in this place of ego and comparison. Now, every time I look forward to the end of next week, right, coming down and being able to see you and Nikki and Sisela and like the whole crew, it's going to be just a great time because I know regardless of what happens, I'm going to get that fill, that inspiration, that feeling of belonging in tribe and all of that, which I've been dying for. I think, when we're not around that, we lose that little bit of ourselves. I know for me, that's what happened. So I'm really looking forward to next weekend. Any surprises happening next weekend?
I'm gifting you a lens, so I guess that's no surprise now. So I just want to look like the cool guy on here on the live, and I'm like, I'm just giving Matt a lens because I can.
Christ, because what you have going on doesn't look cool enough as it is. Right?
No. I think no surprises necessarily. I'm going to try and pull some tricks out of my hat in styling for the workshop and stuff. But I'm in the same place. I'm just excited to be around everyone, and I think there's iterations of ourselves, authentic, very real iterations that can only exist in sort of those collective communal moments when we're around like-minded individuals and like-minded artists. And it's not that we're suppressing it at other points in our life. There's just not a conduit for that aspect of ourselves to be present and for us to be present in that. So it's an absolute necessity, I think, and especially for something like this where we're going to have such a incredible group of people, it's going to be very, very wonderful. And going back to that idea of expectation, I'm not expecting anything. Right. I just reread this quote by Anthony Hopkins, which is so basic, but it's, I expect nothing and I accept everything. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to operate on, even for this trip, where I'm like, I'm not going into it with preconceived notions of what it could be, should be, what it ought to be, what it might be. I'm leaving the expectation of fear by the wayside, of failure, of excitement, of accomplishment, and just going, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be present. And I'm going to embrace all of those things. And that I know I can do and abide by. And whatever unfolds from that, fucking let it be.
Yeah. And I think I've always watched you go into workshops like that with zero expectations. And that's, I think, when I've seen the most magic not only come from the models, but from the photographers of any level being in there. And once they realize there's no pressure to perform, they can just be themselves. Yeah. That is where the magic turns on. And the funny thing is, why does that ever shut off? Why does it shut off when we go back to our studios or we have a client, we're outside? Why do we shut that thing off and put so much pressure on ourselves to perform when all we have to do is not set any expectations and just trust that we have the skills and the ability to build relationships and the talent to succeed and to just get through the thing and not feel like we're going to fuck it up for them, not feel like we're not going to be able to produce good work, right?
Yeah.
It's really strange, the lens that you put on that when you step out of the permissive zone into something that feels more pressure laden.
You beat me with the P word, specifically the permissive thing. I think that's one of the biggest bits is being around other people and feeling as though you have permission to operate on that wavelength, free of those traditional constructs and burdens. And then to see other people do it frees you as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like for any of you who drink to any extent, there's always that moment, you know, when you've gone out to a bar, you've gone out to a club, or I don't know, a fucking cantina, wherever you go to drink, under a bridge, no judgment. But you're like, I'm just going to have one. And then somebody walks in and sits next to you and they're like, yeah, it's one of those days I'm going to have a shot. Can I get you a shot? And you're just like, yeah, fuck it. You know, and you weren't going to give yourself permission, but someone else did. And it applies behaviorally across the whole spectrum. So I think being in that environment and seeing other people doing it, and then you feel empowered to do it. And because they're doing it, you're not worried about judgment or anything else. And there's a liberation. And then we step away from that. I don't even think it's something we decide to do.
Mm.
I think it's, you know, if you think about those gates being held open by a flow of water, when that water stops, the gates just naturally close. So I think most of the time we fall back into a de facto state when we don't have that catalyst or conduit, and then we start operating, you know, under that same pretense, premise, programming, whatever you want to call it, whatever P word you want to use, and it's wild. And then you don't notice it until you do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I've been very judgmental of myself, and I've been setting fucking expectations about expectations, and I don't know when this happened again, but I'm currently in the thick of it, and I need to get the fuck out of this. And then it becomes trying to climb up, you know, the bare fucking cave walls to get back out to some semblance of sunshine, and that's always just peachy.
It's awful, and I'm gonna guess that Kelly aimed this at you. I had the most amazing experience at your workshop, Star Workshop, by the way. So I think, you know, what you said right there about, you know, the empowerment, right? And I really, God knows, I hate that word.
I know it's definitely a buzzword.
But that's the feeling, right? That's really what it is. Whenever I have competed in any way, and I am the low man on the totem pole. I'm the worst photographer. I'm the worst long range shooter. I'm the worst whatever it is.
Yeah.
When I'm around people that are so exponentially above me, there is nothing other than this feeling like, oh, that's possible. Yeah. I can get there. And it's not, you know, this disdain of the person for having practiced more or just been naturally better at the thing. I look at it and I go, all right, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I can get there, because they make it look effortless. And I don't feel like it's effortless right now.
Yeah.
Except that it is, because my feeling that it's not effortless is me placing expectations on myself for delivery of something in comparison to someone else. And so, yeah, the empowerment is great because I feel like it does lift all of us up a little bit more to see people doing their thing, being excited about doing their thing. And you can't help but be infected by that energy. Yeah. And that's one thing that I've noticed in all your workshops, that no matter how kind of different the photographers are, and we all talk and it's like, oh, I'm a horse photographer and I'm a dance photographer and I'm a portrait photographer and I just kind of do self-portraits, like whatever it is. That everybody's a little bit standoffish, right? Because we're trying to form tribe in the first few hours, right? But then as all of those barriers break down, and we start to talk and what if, and maybe if you, and we trade the ideas, that it becomes something else. As an educator that does workshops like this, when you see that happening, do you back off a little bit or do you lean into it? Meaning back off and just kind of let it happen? Or do you lean into it and say, what if we open this door and we go down this? Is there anything from a teaching standpoint that you see, because we all see that happening? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's sort of a case-by-case basis, honestly. I think a lot of times I just like things just sort of fruit on their own. When I see that stuff happening, I feel like the proud papa. I mean, that's my new fucking moniker for myself, is Papa John. So, like, I'm over in the corner is like the proud papa. Like, all right, the kids are doing the thing. They're working amongst themselves. The wheels are turning. And I don't want any of that to be predicated on me, if that makes sense. So I don't want anyone to leave and go like, oh, I don't have Johnny in my ear. I don't have these lights. I don't have these models. I don't want them to think in a lack of mindset. So I don't want the whole thing to be centered around me. So I try and stay hands off in those moments insofar as I can, because then those core memories, moments, epiphanies, evolutions, whatever we want to phrase those as, like they are independent of me, even though I'm present. I'm
Mhm.
ancillary to it, and I think that's much more powerful for the individuals who are there.
Yeah.
And I think in that case, that's me trying to sidestep my own ego actively and go, all right, this isn't about me. Like a workshop's not about me. Even if everyone's there to learn from me, it's about the experience for each one of those individuals who is there with me. So I like to see that. And then it's also just management. I mean, sometimes I feel like maybe things are right on the edge. So going back to the proud papa metaphor, I'm
Right.
like, all right, the birds are flapping their fucking wings. They're all doing the thing. They're all like, hey, we all can fly. And they're
Right.
saying it, but no one's jumping. So I'll just get really close behind everyone and fucking sneeze.
Yeah.
And then one person goes over the edge, and then everyone's like, oh, they can fly. I can fly too. And then it's just
Right.
this beautiful kind of thing. But I never want to micromanage process insofar as I can just take a step back. And also, it probably means that I get to not talk for 10 minutes after having talked for 3 fucking hours straight, and my vocal cords are thankful for the break.
Yeah. I it's walking that line between educator and participant, right?
Yeah,
Like, because at the end of the day, you're making stuff too.
of course.
And that's been a big part of your process, is that you're right in the trenches with people. And it's not
Yeah,
you set up the light and go, now do what I do. It's more, hey, here's how I do it and watch me fail. And, Jeff just made a comment where he's like, let me make this a little bit bigger. I was self-conscious about building my lighting in front of clients, then watched a creative live do it and take his time. It was a relief to see it's okay to get it right. And yeah, I think it's going back to that permission, right? The
yeah,
empowerment.
exactly.
When
Yeah,
you see someone that you admire, that you're inspired by, that you put on a pedestal, that you idolize, whatever it is, that when you see them being human and
yeah,
screwing up and not getting
yeah,
it right the first time, that is so freeing. I know for me it is.
yeah,
And it also kind of boosts your confidence. You're like, you know what? I'm not shit at this. Like, I can actually do this. And quite frankly, I know more. It's like that Ron Swanson in Home Depot. The guy's like, can
yeah,
I help you? He's like, I know more than you, and just kind of keeps walking by. And that's how I feel sometimes. Like, whenever I'm feeling like I'm not able to do something or I don't do it well enough, and then I see someone that I think is up here
yeah,
doing it, and I'm like, dude, just move the light stand. That's all you have to do.
yeah,
Just lower it a little bit. Like, you don't have to keep fighting with power. Just lower it just a little bit.
yeah,
That I'm like, all right, I've learned enough.
yeah,
Now let me take my knowledge and do the things that I want to do with it. And I think that's one of the biggest things going into a workshop, is to have that little dose of self-confidence that
yeah,
you're not there to shoot like Johnny. You're not there to shoot like me. You're not there to shoot like Cicely. You're not there to do any of that stuff. You're there to shoot like you.
yeah.
And what is the voice that you're bringing to that time with the tribe, right? Because we can all learn from each other. And God knows I've
Oh,
learned from so many people that are like, I picked up my camera last week, or I'm just brand new. I don't even have a business yet. And then
yeah,
I see their stuff and I'm like, well, shit, I got to up my game, because like you're coming on strong because you've
yeah,
got that passion, because you've got that thing.
yeah. Well,
And I love that. I love seeing
it,
that.
it's funny that you should even say that, because I just had someone write about the workshop in Philly, and they're signing up sort of last minute. And they're like, listen, Johnny, I really don't have any experience in the studio. I really haven't done a lot of portraits, and I have very entry level gear. Is this still appropriate for me? And I said, absolutely. I'm like, I've had people come in who are makeup artists who had never been in this environment before, who not only thrived, but contributed as much, if not more, than anyone else because of their unique perspective. But there was that bit going back to ego in my mind where I was like, shit, what a fucking start. I'm like, you're just getting this. You're aware of what you want. You're aware of stylistic elements of where you want to be. You're going to be in this community, in the studio with these models and me and all of these other incredible artists. And there was that bit where it's like, I wish I fucking had that when I was in a position where I didn't have any experience and had my entry level gear. And it was in a very heartfelt way. But I was like, of course, I want you to be comfortable. I'm like, but please, I would love for this to be a foundation from which you can sort of catapult and jumpstart your own exploration and evolution as an artist. And that's going to be really, really incredible. And I think what you're saying is so poignant, because anyone who's been at one of my workshops has seen me follow in a student and take their shot, where I'm just like, that's fucking badass. I'm going to get one of mine. And I kind of nudge them out of the way
Yeah.
and I take it. And just and I love doing that because it's so beautiful to see that type of energy back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about genres, like when you see a dance photographer photographing a dancer because of how the portrait photographer was photographing them, because they're like, well, I never saw it that way because they
Right.
can't. So all of those different perspectives and thought processes and approaches sort of coalescing together, you know, we wind up in this really wonderful vegetable, beef, whatever you're into food wise, fucking stew of ideas and creativity that we never could get to on our own. And I think that's one of the biggest, most powerful elements, is just that collective energy, for lack of better phrasing.
Yeah, you know, I think Pauline is in here. We can call it a goulash, and I think she'd be
Goulash.
pretty happy
Pauline.
about that.
Paulina,
Um,
привет. I know that's Russian. Don't get on me, Paulina.
yeah, I think you're dead on with a lot of that. And I'm going to move past the workshop a little bit
Yeah.
and talk about a few more things. The something I saw, and I haven't had a chance to even talk to you about this at all.
Yeah.
You were on a Boris Effects webinar the other day.
Yeah.
I had no idea you were doing work with them. Like, how did this all come about?
So I used Boris, like this was probably a year or two ago, and I was like, all right, I felt really stagnant in my editing process. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to bring on some tools that I'm not familiar with. So I was using fucking Alien Skin and DxO
Right.
Film Pack and, you know, this and this. And I just stumbled across Boris, probably on like a subreddit, a random subreddit that I wound up, I'm not going to talk about how I got there. But anyway, I was surfing the Reddit and I wound up there. And I was like, oh shit, like I had heard about it for some VFX and I didn't know that they had a photography standalone. So I did a
Yeah.
trial. I had it for a while, and mainly I was just using it for like they have really good diffusion emulation. And then I just stopped using it. I don't know why. It just, I think like my credit card, I changed my credit card and I was just too fucking lazy to update the card number. So I'm like, oh, I really like that program, but I'm not going to log into my account and go through my Rolodex of passwords and find what I'm fucking looking for here. It's not happening. So I just didn't do it. And then Renee Robin, who's a total badass. If all of you out there are not familiar with Renee and her amazing work and just her general badassedness, definitely check that woman out, an artist out. But she reached out to me, and she's now one of the product managers, or the product manager for Boris.
Yeah.
And one of the primary people on that team. And she's like, hey, Johnny, we're looking at sort of like trying to reach out to more photographers. You know, you have a following. You're a total fucking weirdo. You know, your name and voice carry some semblance of cachet. Very flattering all around. You know, you fucking maniac, you cult leader son of a bitch. But so she's like, listen, how would you know, can I give you a trial of this? And I'm like, I've actually used it, but yeah. So I started using these different tools and optics again. And I was like, that's great. And then she's like, hey, the team knows that you do a lot of lives in education. Do you want to do a live with us?
Right.
And I said, sure. And it was wild because it was, I mean, they're so pro over at Boris. Like we had a tech spec sheet that came in, and then we had the pre-tech call, and we had the actual producer. And it's not knocking anything else, but I'm used to going on lives with like these companies where there's like Bert, who, you know, worked with a VHS tape in 96, and they're the tech person, and so everything's cutting in and out, and I'm trying to tell people what's going on. So they had it on fucking lock, and we had a ball. But it was just one of those things where I think, you know, Renee thought, well, Johnny has a unique style of work that's recognizable. This is something that would be specific to his niche of work that he would probably find relevant. And then also, Goddess knows I like to fucking talk. That's all I do is talk, and I'm decently good at it. So she's like, oh, here's some converging factors. Let's see what this gent can do. And then it's just been sort of an unfolding of sorts.
No, it was a ton of fun. It was a long webinar too. It was near 2 hours.
I was going to say that. It was like 2 hours. And the only reason I had to go was because of the thing that was going on with my stepdad. I mean, we talked about it when we were ending. We probably could have went for another 2 hours easily. It just felt very natural and organic, and it was really nice.
Yeah, it was cool. Now, I haven't looked at the Boris stuff in a while. And, you know, to be honest, when Renee joined, I was super stoked that she was joining that team because I love seeing friends succeed, right? And kind of the future shaping of the industry, right? Where are some of these people landing, and how is their mind going to shape what we all do down the line?
Yeah,
and
very much so.
You know, there was a point where I was kind of like you, using Alien Skin and Boris and all these different filters and whatnot. And I've gotten away from that just because the nature of my work has evolved beyond that. Yeah. However, I always go back, and what you were doing on the webinar, for those of you that weren't there, and I'll call him Bert. I forget the gentleman's name, the English guy, but
Ben.
Ben, yeah, you were going through and just playing, just testing
Yeah.
filters. You took a shot and you're like, let me see if I like this. Let me see if I like this. Let me play with this. And I think we've lived in such this world of you've got to have a look and a preset
Hmm.
and it's got to be exactly the same. And I felt like I had gone back to the beginning of photography and I was just curious.
Yeah. Yes.
And, you know, what does this do? What if I
Yeah.
jack this slider up and bring this one down? Right.
Yep.
And that for me was just kind of refreshing to see because I like seeing how people's minds work.
Yeah.
And when you landed on what you landed on, I think it was a monochrome look. And,
Yeah.
you know, you were like, I'm good with this as is. And you really hadn't done anything else.
Yeah.
You could have spent 7 hours in, you know, Lightroom or Photoshop trying to get that look. And you did it with a couple of clicks and it was
Yeah.
just as good and you felt just as good about it artistically. I think we forget, we get a little bit up on our high horse about, you know, having to edit perfectly and, oh, you use an action for frequency separation. Well, I create all my own layers and I
Manually
do
build my
all
layers.
my
Yeah.
high pass filters myself. And if
Yeah.
you, whatever.
And
So like being able to see, you know, a couple of clicks and have it be okay
yeah.
felt just really good because I get in my head about that all the time. I try to be too pure about things that I have
Yeah.
to control every aspect. And no, you fucking don't. You just
Well, and I
don't.
mean, it goes back to that sort of intuitive thing for me, you know, where I'm trying to play more in post, and even when I'm just creating, just to see what's resonating with me at this point in time, because it is
Right.
so easy to get caught in these like linear pathways where we're just doing the thing. It becomes tradition almost. And I remember being a kid and, you know, asking my whoever my parental guardian was at that point, you know, why do you stuff a fucking turkey on Thanksgiving? And it's like, well, that's just what we do. And that was never an acceptable answer to me. Like it's, well, we just why though? Why is it just what we do? And so I have to question myself creatively. And I find myself getting into ruts, or I find myself becoming ideological or zealous about certain approaches. And I'm like, well, I need to mix this shit up. And I think that a lot of people I've seen recently have been good. They're like, hey, I'm an outdoor shooter and I'm in the studio, or I work with strobe and I'm working with constant lights, or I'm a natural light shooter and I'm working with strobes. But I feel like people get very rigid in post processing. You know, they're
Yeah.
like, I open up Lightroom and it goes into my catalog, and here's the nomenclature for my
Right.
catalog. And I use, you know, Sue Bryce's whatever, Olive Tapenade is the first piece. And then I layer on this, and then I open it in Photoshop and I use Critiques actions, and everything's process oriented. Everything has a specific that, oh, there's blush on this photo, so I use this action, or I push 2 points of green in using levels for RGB. You know, and that's cool. It's so systemized, but there's no room for experimentation. And so that's why I love those tools. Or I just, once again, I click through and I'm like a 15-year-old stoner, you know, discovering streaming for the first time. And I'm just like, fucking sweet, man. Yeah. I'm like, look at this beauty glow. I'm like, that kind of looks like shit, but I also kind of love it. Damn, I didn't know I wanted that. I'm going back to glamour shots circa 94. And I just love that look. But I think for me, you know, that's where some of my, I would say the work that I've shared that's had the biggest impact on my trajectory as an artist or as a professional has happened where I allowed myself to play and I went in a completely different direction. And all of a sudden I started getting these notes from people and they're like, Johnny, this is you, but it isn't you. And this is so badass. And I didn't know you did this. Can you do this for me? So I'm not saying that always has resulted in positive things, but generally speaking, when I allow myself to experiment, it's not only cathartic for me and it allows me some freedom, but then all of a sudden these new opportunities come in because it's like once we open ourselves up a little bit, the universe is like, oh, you're not being a closed off son of a bitch. All right, I'll throw you a couple of bones.
Right.
And then things sort of start to take hold and some traction is found. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, you're talking about experimenting, and this whole thing is an experiment, right? Me
Yeah.
trying
Oh, very
to
much so.
move my streaming studio back to the house and do all this stuff and playing with new software and you know learning as I go, right? Clearly, I didn't know that when you joined, I wouldn't have a vertical. I thought I'd be able to put you, you know, kind of like this. And maybe someone out there that's an eCam expert is like, "Hey, idiot, go to options, hashtag vertical, like whatever it is." But the funny thing is as I'm going through and setting it up, I was playing with all of these like different looks and trying to get you know, this to look okay, right?
Yeah.
And so I start applying LUTs, and now I'm
Yeah.
playing with LUTs and saturation, and I'm like, no, first, no one's going to be fucking watching, right? So the next thing is just like, how do I make it look the way I want? So I'm using like
Yeah.
Fuji film emulsion and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I got lost for like a half an hour just
Yeah.
trying to make this look good. Now
Yeah.
I know you just went ahead and set up 9 lights and you've got, amazing
In
texture
fairness,
and
this is
color.
the same setup I used for Boris. I just swapped the backdrop, so I dialed my shit in.
Oh, so we're down to 7 lights. Okay, I get it.
I was actually going to say, I love the aesthetic of everything. I was actually going to mention that. I didn't know if it was just a quality of Ecamm versus the last software that we use, but like the fidelity, the resolution, and the overall look of this, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. To side note about the software for a little bit. So I was a StreamYard guy, and then was using Restream, that awful piece of shit software.
That was not great at all.
It was awful. And no apologies to them. They need to work on that shit a lot. All right, Jackie O, thanks for joining us.
Now we're talking shit, so I feel like I have to build in some.
Oh, all right. No, we'll do a whole bunch of shit talking in a minute. So the thing about this is that I was saying at the very beginning of the broadcast, I'm used to using OBS as a broadcasting software. Yeah. And this is basically the web version of it, right? So a couple of intricacies that you have to learn, but gives you so much more flexibility. If you're looking to do any streaming, check out Ecamm Live. It's the same price as everything else. All right, shit talking time. So maybe you may need to get your glasses. So I was on...
Hold on, I feel like for shit talking, I got to turn off one of my 7 lights.
No, I'll give you time.
Where? There we go. My background glow is gone.
Oh, now we're just making it. Okay. And while we're sitting here, and I'm gonna talk about this too. Consider this the intermission. So what I like to do is in the light back there, right? So you've got Nan light to the moon. I've got Amazon Govee bulbs that what I like to do, I can change the color just from my phone, right? So if I want to get super dramatic with it, right? The cool thing about having kind of these cheap 4 for $30 type of light bulbs is for a home setup like this. Yeah. They're perfect to set a mood. They're perfect to do this stuff. And there's no reason why they have to be, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit brighter. There we go. There's no reason that it has to be hard or expensive or you need all this heavyweight gear to do what we're doing. I'm literally using, you know what? Let's play with Ecamm Live because I am going to start.
I heard a noise.
All right. So here you are, right? So we just kind of switched over to my phone. So as we look around at my desk, and this is the monitor that I'm on, right? And I'm just using this little light and then that light back there with down on the floor, I have a Stella that is, you know, in a diffusion panel from a Paul C. Buff beauty dish. And I'm just trying to do as much as I can do to make this easy. And I don't know how to get out of this. We'll try to do this.
This feels very meta now because now I can't see that profile on the back end. So I'm now watching the live on my phone of you using your phone in the live. And this is
No, all the drugs kicked in. So anyway, I was just kind of, you know, showing everybody all the stuff that I have going on in here. And it's kind of cool that Ecamm can do that it can, you know, just kind of connect to your phone without being plugged in. Oh, we lost him again. I like, are we
dynamic is the word of the day.
All right. So we're doing lighting battles apparently. So you've got that scene going. All right. Let's see what we get. I don't know. We'll just kind of make things happen, right? Oh, I did this on the wrong. Oh boy. I don't know. This is where shit goes off the rail. I'm going to
You
start
literally
watching.
look like a version of the devil right now with the beard and with the color on your face.
What did Corey call me? Jafar, right? Was Jafar? Was that it?
Yes.
That prick.
Like I'm about to make a deal at the crossroads right now
Good
with my
Lord.
flickering light.
All right. Let's see if I can kind of get me back to where I was. Good Lord.
Well, now I got yeah. Now okay.
No, it's fine. I don't mind having a seizure.
Hold on.
Hope you guys are enjoying this because this is what you get. This is what you get. Friday night.
Now, okay. Now, hold on.
This is hysterical.
This is the vibe I need for the shit talking because I have.
Oh, all right. So maybe I should pixelate.
Ability now.
Should I pixelate your face?
You know, the thing about it is I was really.
So, all right, boys. Yeah, that's exactly right, Darina. Boys and their toys. So, one of the things that I was doing this week, I watch a lot of webinars. I go on, and that's kind of how I stumble across the Boris one. Is I get all these emails and all these invites, and I love attending the webinars because I like to see what's going on in the industry and see the trends and see who's an ambassador for who and who's talking about what, and so on and so forth. And it's not from ego or competition. I just kind of look at it and it interests me. Right, this is my hobby and my passion. I watched a webinar this week, and I think if I mention the name of it, then everybody will know who I'm talking about. And I really don't want to throw people under the bus. And I don't want to throw brands under the bus.
Yeah.
But I will throw their personalities under a bus. And what I find is that it got me thinking about the state of the industry, who we anoint as the celebrities, and then that's all well and good. People create opportunities for themselves, and if they get the chance and they run with it, awesome. It's not what I'm talking about. What I am fascinated by is the marketing departments of some of these companies that find an ambassador or an influencer, and they base the decision to bring them on board for their brand based on number of followers or general, like, well, they're already with this company, we should get them too.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at their brand, their mission, what's their voice, and saying, does this person align with that? So I'm watching this webinar, and it's kind of a nerdy one about some gear. And they had two of their brand ambassadors on. One, fantastic, amazing. And I'm going to pause right now. Why does Johnny Edward look like a frame in a comic book right now? Because we're about to talk some shit, Kat. And
well, keep talking. Hold on. There's someone at the door.
So great. So Johnny's about to let a stranger in the studio. We're going to see how this all goes. But now we're in black and white. Perfect. So
no one was at the door. I just had to go monochrome for this.
This is really this. Oh my
Sin
God,
City.
Better and better and better. So I don't even. All right. I'm watching this webinar. One of the ambassadors is fantastic. The other one was not prepared, didn't have any images that I thought spoke to the products that they were trying to elevate.
Yeah.
There was no vocabulary. There was no presentation skill. The work was fine, but not extraordinary by any means. And as someone that's been on the inside of corporate marketing decisions, looking at this, I was blown away that this large company had this person as an ambassador. Again, not comparing me to them, but looking at it and saying, why wouldn't you as a brand want to have people that are eloquent, passionate, excited, instead of saying, it's like, it's like good. The thing, the product is like it was good. I had, it worked. Yeah, it's gonna
Not
fucking work.
compelling.
It's on the market.
Yeah,
They tested it. They did the R&D, right?
Yeah.
What I watch webinars for is, all right, you've got the shiny gadget thing, right? I want to know how you use it. What is it that you love about it? Why should I go out and spend my money on this? Right? I hadn't really heard of Viltrox. This is not the webinar that I was watching, but I never really heard of Viltrox until I saw you and Simon and guys that I respect starting to use the gear. And I was like, all right, well, let me take a look at that, because you were able to explain it and Simon was able to explain it. And I'm watching these, these meetups happen. What is your view? Take yourself out of the fact that you work with brands, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see this sort of stuff? As someone that does work with brands and does know kind of like the inside baseball, does it frustrate you? Do you feel like it's a negative to the industry that we're elevating people that aren't doing? I don't know. I don't even want to say that, because do you feel like marketing departments are lazy and they just kind of pick the flavor of the week?
I think that a lot of these marketing departments are outmoded. I think they have a way of thinking about things that's antiquated and that's not relevant to the current marketplace. And the way that I feel about it overall is I think it's a big fucking shame.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't think about myself in these instances, but I do think about all the incredibly deserving, impassioned, dedicated, badass individuals that there are in this industry. Yeah. So when I see someone getting chose for an arbitrary reason, like you said, whether it's because of the numbers on their Instagram, which are oftentimes bullshit,
Yep.
or their numbers on TikTok, which are oftentimes bullshit, or because they just happen to work with an allied partner, just because someone, it's the person being like, well, I should get a raise or I should get a promotion because I've been doing this job for 10 years. And it's like, well, right. You could be doing that job shittily for 10 years. Your time doing a thing doesn't equate to any level of aptitude. Right. So for me, I think the biggest heartbreak is that there are so many incredible people in our industry and in community. So seeing those people being looked over for some sort of, corporate buzzword or arbitrary metric is painful. Yeah. And I think that it does diminish the industry if you get people in these roles where they're ambassadors or influencers for a brand, however that relationship is working, and they don't have merit. They can't speak to the brand. They can't speak to the product line. They don't speak with passion. They don't speak with energy. It's a downer, and it turns people off and tunes people out. And that has, I think, a rippling effect into the industry as a whole. So I would love to see these companies do a better job of curating individuals who are really representative of the product, of the brand, of the idea, of the vision, of the aesthetic, and choosing people who are in actual alignment instead of just being like, oh, well, Bill's friend has a fucking friend who has 120,000 followers. They don't take the time to look and see that there's 17 likes and one comment, which is Bill commenting on his own post in every single fucking post. Yep. But that's another thing entirely, hence the anonymity here. But I do. It's really upsetting, and I always feel great anytime I have an opportunity with these brands where they're like, well, who's someone I should work with? I'm like, well, listen, I know you're saying you need at least 20,000 followers, but here's someone to fucking consider for X, Y, Z. Right. And so I really hope that there is a change, but given the way that corporate bullshit works, I don't think that change is going to come anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's something that I saw when I was building Firelance, and I was working a lot in the gun industry, and I saw a lot of it there, right? Because there were all of these great companies, some mom and pops, some really, really large companies, the Smith and Wessons, the Glocks, right? Yeah. And the smaller companies specifically, and it's the same thing for this industry, right? Smaller companies versus the Canons and the Fujis and whatnot, right? So the smaller brands oftentimes are falling into that trap, I find, of follower numbers, or they're not really digging in. They're saying that, all right, they've got 100,000 on Instagram and 100,000 on TikTok. Great, we want to break into that market. That's fine. So every morning, just about every morning, I have breakfast with a buddy of mine who is a social media manager for large boutique hotels all over the world. High-end, $5,000 to $10,000 a night hotels, right? These really high-end places. And he does all the management. I think it's up to like 30 or 35 hotels that he works on this for. So he manages all the voice, and he sees all of these influencers coming through saying, hey, can we get a free night? We'll, bring you to our followers. If you let us stay at your resort, we'll film a video and make a reel and do all this sort of stuff, right? And they're trying to do this trade. And inevitably, he's just like, whenever I get that, I go to their account, I throw it in Mo's dashboard, which is Mo's is like an SEO social media tool, throws it in there and looks, and you can analyze what percentage of their followers are real versus bots, what's their engagement rate, what's their time, right? How often are they doing this, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you all this real insight to what that person's audience is like.
Yeah.
There were so many people in probably the last 5 or 10 years that, if you're thinking 5 to 8 years ago, you were able to buy a lot of followers and no one knew, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you could go from, and you can still do it now, but it's very easy to kind of see all that stuff. But you could go to a click farm and buy 5,000, 10,000, 30,000 followers. And that was enough to get you in with brands, because the brands were just like, holy shit, this person's got all this following. That's what we need. We should get them on board. And that's how they get in. They play the game. They had that leg up, and now they've established themselves and probably have earned their place. Yeah. But it was built on a level of deception. And I think there's a certain amount of vetting that is not happening. And I love the fact that you talked about, so many other deserving people. I look around at artists everywhere, and I'm like, why are you not the ambassador for everyone? Why are you not, in galleries and museums? And why are you not a Canon Explorer of Light? And why are you not, this, that, and that? Because there are so many talented people out there. The hard part, and I'll flip this around, the hard part is that those people also may have been playing the game for a long time, and they know how it goes. And they're not in it for the short term, I'm going to get a cool camera. They're looking to build long-term relationships, and they know how the game works, and the company knows that they know how the game works, and they're going to give them what they need.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with anyone that is an influencer or an ambassador for a brand. I just want to make sure, and it's not up to me, what I find is that I am more likely to engage with that brand when I believe in the person that they have chosen to market for them. Because that's all it is, marketing.
Very much so.
A lot of times they're unpaid. A lot of times it's paid in gear, right? You know this.
You're lucky.
And, there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's an equal exchange. I hate seeing brands come to people and they're just kind of like, hey, we love your stuff. We want to get 4 reels, 2 TikToks, a post, a blog post every month for the next 6 months, and we will send you a light stand. You can go fuck yourself, because what you're asking for is free marketing. You're asking for me to do work for you for free for what probably costs you $20 in materials. Call it 50 these days, inflation. $50 in material. You want me to give you hours and hours and hours of my time that will sell your product to my audience, and there's no points on it. There's no shared profit on it. I get a light stand?
Yeah.
No, you're giving me a demo kit that I can bring around with me to do more marketing. It's not how this works, right? And it always blows my mind, because it's the smaller brands that make those mistakes. The larger brands, the Canons, the Nikons, just because of the names people know, they have full marketing departments, and there are 9 levels of approval, right? And now it's a whole different game of politics and who gets chosen and what gets put out and whatnot. But you and I have seen this quite a bit, where X product is launching brand new product line. Holy shit, this is going to be a worldwide launch. And they put it out, and the pictures while fine, are kind of garbage for the amount of verbiage that they were using to market this thing.
Relatively, absolutely. Yeah,
You
very
know?
much so.
Or if they're going to say like this will, outshine the sun and it's going to be great, and you go outside and like that could have just been taken in natural light. There's no actual indication that a flash was used or that a camera was used. Like what is this? So I think what frustrates me the most is when I'm seeing not people get an opportunity, has nothing to do with it, laziness in marketing, not following through with, does this fit the brand? We're all so conscious of how our own brands come across. Why are the big brands not doing that? And I if anybody in the comments, anybody watching this either agrees, disagrees, has insight, have at it. But I'm just really tired of watching the same people go to all these different brands and do the same pitch with the same stuff. Hey, brands, there are other people in the world. This isn't me advocating for me. That's not it at all. What I'm saying is there are so many more talented people out there that aren't getting these amazing opportunities. And I don't know why that is. What's your thought?
I mean, once again, I think it's just I think it's an outmoded way of thinking. I think people are very myopic, especially in that corporate landscape. And I think they probably assume they're getting more from certain individuals than they really are. And even going back to that numerical thing, it's like, take a photographer who shoots, let's say, a lot of boudoir and erotica and that type of thing. And I'm not talking about the very artful stuff, but the very expected male gaze kind of stuff. Right. And so they have 100,000 followers, and the camera company goes, well, we're going to sponsor this person. The people who are on that individual's page are not looking for recommendations on gear. Right. They are looking for two things, one that starts with T and the other that starts with A. There is no one there sourcing what the latest stabilized lens is from Canon. They're sourcing other types of phallic objects, so there's just not a carryover into that. So I think there's that element of things. And I don't know, like, I honestly don't have a good answer. I've racked my brain about this a lot. And I think one of the most frustrating things is it categorically does not make sense to me. And, you and I were having this conversation earlier, and this has been happening a lot. I think that words have been hollowed out. And so people say words without meaning, and then there's no attachment to them. So it's like, well, we're going to do dynamic lighting. We're teaching a class on dynamic lighting, and then all of the lighting is from the front. And there's no direction and there's nothing dynamic about it. And you're like, well, I'm not disappointed in the images I'm seeing. What I'm disappointed by is the fact that you said this is a dynamic lighting class, and you haven't shown one example of dynamic lighting from the person who's supposed to be showing me how to light dynamically. There's something very much fucking wrong with that equation. So there's just this massive disconnect between the visual element and the written element or the spoken element. And I don't get why that bridge seems to be so hard for a lot of these companies and educators and individuals to cross, but it's mind-numbingly frustrating at times.
It's lack of innovation is what it is, right? So
innovation is scary because you could fuck up and...
Well, I think you want to turn your light back on?
I'm coming back in.
Okay, cool. So
Hold on, goddamn it.
This by no means is a reflection on the Nanlite products as we talk about brands, right? This is purely operator error.
A classic case of user error, which is the way I love to error out.
I think it's innovation, right? Laziness in innovation. And I say that because many people are aware of the fact that light is light, right?
Yeah.
And I am never one to say, don't put out a course about your lighting technique or this lighting technique. It's all valuable. Someone will watch it and get a lot of good information from it. But we're trying to market and promote things like, oh my God, this is exactly what you need because everything else that's come before this has been dog shit. And instead, all you're doing is just giving your version of it. And that's okay. Yep. But let's not oversell the thing, right? Let's not say that this light stand, this is going to change your lighting. This is going to make your clients cream as soon as they come into your studio because they're going to say, you have one of those light stands?
Ooh,
oh my God, right? It holds something off the ground. That's all it is. That's all it is. There's no innovation in what you're doing. If you came up for a way to levitate a light and have it circle around and create all these new effects based on telepathy, sure, might be innovative. If you're a light stand, no. So again, this is something I saw in the gun industry. People are like, oh, we're coming out, whole new pistol, whole new AR. We're going to come out with all this stuff. And you look at it and you're like, it's black, and it's got a trigger, and it shoots bullets. It's no different than anything else since John Moses Browning. Yeah. So I think, we get wrapped up in our own marketing spin. We want things to be attractive and exciting. And if your product is boring, it's okay. There's value in it. Yeah. Just be really good at your product. It doesn't have to be dynamic or, fantastic. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It can just be the best light stand you've ever used. Yeah. That's it. Right. Yep. And I love looking at brands that are doing that. Yeah. That are saying, hey, you got a million choices out there. Here's why we think ours is good.
Yeah. Give us a look. Decide for yourself.
But we will take the social proof of people that we hold higher as the influence, right? Yep. And last week, I was with that guy and he was hammered and I had to get him out of a bar. And he's not necessarily the guy you want working for your company as their ambassador because he's not what everybody thinks, right? Yeah. And I think we just we've got an overinflated sense of self-worth when it comes to a lot of things. And I say that looking in the mirror and pointing fingers at myself all the time. Overinflated sense of self-worth. Yeah. However, when I'm not selling necessarily a product. I got this podcast course out there. Yeah. You can learn all the shit that I teach you on YouTube.
Badass, everyone. I am not a paid actor. It is badass, bona fide.
All I'm saying is you can learn all that stuff on YouTube. The value of what I do is I condensed it all into one place. Absolutely. You want it? Great. If you don't, that's cool. You can learn this stuff on your own. I have no problem with that. But I'm not going to go out there and be like, your podcast sucks if you don't follow my method.
This is the only way to get from point A to point B is with what I have packaged for you at this price point.
And by us seeing that, we think that we're not good enough to create with what we have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the intention, right? That's Absolutely. The intention of so much of this. And then we have the other side, circling back to ego where we were. We have those of us who care so much that it instills in us a sense of inadequacy if it gets its talons in. And then we have those who don't give a shit whatsoever, but they just want to lord over others in our industry with the latest and greatest. So then I could sit here and be like, oh, Matt, that's cute. You're using a crop sensor. I mean, I only do medium format, but our standards are probably different. And I just want to be that. And then if you look at my work is, categorical dog shit, but I just want to be able to swing my big shiny toy around and go like latest, greatest, newest, biggest, shiniest, or most matte. I don't know how they're fucking presenting things. And then there's that nature of it. So it's pretty despicable on a number of levels, but obviously that's prevalent in all industries. But for this, I would just like to see more heart and more genuineness and less bullshit. Because I think, most of us can see right through it, and it's insulting to feed someone, a fucking baked potato and call it filet mignon. And they're like, listen, I might not be Gordon Ramsay, but I know I'm looking at a fucking potato and this isn't a prime cut of steak.
Right. Yeah. I think it's when you see something that is either truly innovative or just leaps and bounds beyond anything you've ever seen before. That's where you're just like, holy shit, that's a potato? Is that really? That has an engine in it that you made from carrots? Like, how does that even work? Right? Spectacular. Yeah. There's a guy on TikTok. He's a chocolatier. And he makes all this stuff and it goes through, he's got a big bucket of chocolate. And then suddenly it's a Model T Ford made completely out of chocolate, right? And it's got a working rack and pinion, the whole thing. Yeah. Blows my mind that people can do that. That to me is special. That to me is just craftsmanship, right? But when I'm looking at all this other stuff and, people aren't doing anything innovative. Yeah. It doesn't make me mad or upset, I go, I don't believe anything you say because this isn't genuine. This isn't new. You know, I have a really hard time with seeing everybody. I woke up and chose violence this morning because I was looking at my phone and realizing that there wasn't a person on there that wasn't sad or that wasn't trying to sell me something.
I'm only laughing because of the absurdity and the trueness of it. But
and some of the salespeople were not overtly selling.
Yeah.
But even when I make a post, I'll put out a post on Instagram. Hey, I took a picture of this person. I'm kind of selling my services, right?
Yeah, and in a sense, absolutely. Yeah.
And I looked at that. I was just like, we're all just marketers and salespeople. That is an aspect of the job. Yeah. But why is it that way? And this is probably, I'm not high enough and I don't have enough time in the rest of my days to talk about this. But I'm starting to look at all of this because I want to do it differently. And I don't know what that means yet. I don't know how I'm going to get past that. I'm trying to be a little bit more approachable, a little bit more authentic, get past my own ego and self-confidence issues and just do shit like this, right? Let people hear me talk like I talk and not try to be so performative about it.
Yep.
And I find that there are so many people that just don't get that would be infinitely more successful if they were just them, if they just did them. And I don't know, I think that made me a little bit depressed to see that happening and to know a lot of the people on my friends list. And I want to get in touch with them and be like, are you okay? Are you sad? Like every meme that you post is some sense of longing or yearning or something that you don't have. And it causes me a little bit of consternation because I want to just give them a hug. I don't want to buy their shit, but I want to give them a hug. You know,
what they really need.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's before I go down that line, Jeff says, I get asked how much I spend on my lighting. 3 Godox TD60s. I got a marketplace for $75. Attaboy. That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you there ain't a client that walks in that's just like, you're using Godox? Really? Yeah. Right? Not a client. As long as you're producing the work that they love, I don't care if you use a lighter and a reflector. Doesn't matter to me. So anyway, I think, you know, the state of social media, influencers, marketing, ambassadors, the game. I think I'm just getting too fucking old for this shit.
I think there's a contraction going on right now too, right? Economically, like I can only speak for the States. I've heard that it's very similar in other parts of the world, like Europe, but there's this massive economic contraction. There's a lot of fear mongering that's going around. Some of it is very legitimate. Like we have families, we have livelihoods, we have homes, we have all of these things. A lot of it is manufactured because the reality is when people are afraid, they're easy to control and they fucking consume a lot. I get afraid. I can't control the circumstances, but I can control how much I put on my Amazon fucking Prime card. So you get people afraid and uncertain and you just start feeding them faux fucking solutions. And so there's so much of that that's happening right now, but it's disheartening. And yeah, the brand thing is ridiculous. And like you said, just the packaging is wild to me. And it's like, take Profoto. I love Profoto lights, but I would say overall, I enjoy the way Profoto markets to a large degree, but some of their fucking emails, Profoto, I know you're going to never represent me, so I don't give a shit. But, you know, it's like revolutionize the way you light with the new click modifier. Open your modifier in only 1.7 seconds. And I'm like, is this a life and death situation? Like, if I have to actually click my modifier into place, are those 5 seconds going to make a definitive difference for me? You know, but the way that it's phrased and it's this person and it's slow-mo pans up and they're clicking it as they're looking into a grandiose sunset and their kids are running over a hill and their dead grandmother is back and all of this fucking crazy shit is happening over a modifier. And I'm like, fuck, I'm like, and the weird thing about that to me too is I always operate on this premise of under promise and over deliver.
Sure.
That's just how that's always been my modus operandi. So I'm like, why as a company would you set the precedent to be that, you know, the necromancer's softbox? And so you expect people to rise from the dead when you open it, and instead one of the ribs just breaks. And you're like, fuck this modifier and fuck this brand, and you never buy anything from them again. They could have just said, create nice light in a portable package, period. But it had to be this a grand, if King Louis IV was still alive, this is the sensor he would use to create portraits of his peasants. And you're just like, who the fuck is this even relevant to? It's insanity. And then they're like, why are we losing market share to Flashpoint? Flashpoint is just like, good light works well, we'll fix if broken. And people are like, fuck yeah, I get that, and it's a third of the price. Fucking win.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at, right? Is they think they have to sell something beyond the value, right? And I keep coming back to, and I say this all the time, people are sick of hearing me say it, but it's the story brand model of just tell how you're solving the problem.
Yeah.
And setting up a light quickly is not the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you can't set up your light quickly, practice more. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's causing you to lose a job or a client because you got it set up in 5 seconds instead of 2.3 seconds, right? Whatever. Sell it that super compact, fits in your shitty little car that you paid off. You paid $1,000 for it. It kind of gets you from job to job, but this light fits in there. Yeah. Awesome.
Your Yugo.
Your Yugo, right? Your Suzuki Samurai. How old am I? Jesus. So I think people, the marketing departments, forget about the value. What's the problem that they're trying to solve? It's not that people want faster modifiers. They want stuff that's value-based, that can fit in their car, right? Because if they're the photographer that's focused on having the brand, they're focused on the wrong thing. It's more of a look at me rather than let's create for you.
Well, and I will say here to be a martyr to this conversation a little bit, you know, my grandma always used to tell me, because she just liked to fucking rag on me, you know, she'd be like, when you point at someone, you have 3 fingers pointing back at you, you know, that type of thing, the old adage. And I will point my finger here at myself, everyone. Matt and I had this discussion, and this is not a sales pitch at all, because that would be just so fucking hypocritical and ironic. But my workshop, I recently rebranded my workshop, and the only reason this is relevant is I actually had this exact discussion with Matt, and I'm a flowery person, for those of you who don't know me, like, especially if you've only heard me dropping like 4 fuck bombs over the course of like 3 seconds. I'm usually pretty eloquent and poetic and flowery. And I was like, Matt, I think I need to change the branding for my workshop, because it was just so highbrow. It was like, you know, the artistic alchemy and its transmutation of emotion into art, and it's transformational and emboldening, and you will walk in and be challenged to explore your innermost sanctum of creativity so that you may find the wellspring from which you can tap into infinitely towards celebrating others through the lens of your specific device. And for me, I was probably higher drunk when I wrote that. I'm like, this is fucking a masterpiece, man. I'm like, this reads like fucking T.S. Eliot. Like, people are gonna drive in from all over the world. But it's like it was exclusionary. So I'm like, I need to make this a little bit more pointed. I need to speak about what's actually happening. And I do think that's part of the process, but it was aggrandizing to some extent. And I didn't want to do that. And I think I'm gonna be so reductionist that my next workshop, I'm just gonna be like, I make art despite who I am. If you want to make art despite who you are, come learn from me how to do just that. Right. Like, you know, that type of just bare bones shit. But it's easy to fall into. And I think that's the thing, is so much of this falls from the top down. And so I see a lot of fellow photographers, and this isn't to be, I just fired shots at myself, everyone. So if you're like, Johnny, you incidentally called me out, I'm roasting myself, so you're fucking next to me. So don't say shit to me. But I mean, I see photographers doing the same thing with how they market their services. And it's like, all right, you know, you're a headshot photographer, and are headshots important? Absolutely. And can a good headshot get you an acting job or get you a client? Absolutely. But like, the way that gets worded and promoted, you know, it's a video and it's like the headshot that will change everything. Right. The way that, you know, and it's like, you know, there was a time long ago when headshots like this were not available, but now you can come to Matt Stagliano and the world will finally see you and your business for who you are and what you do. And you're just like, that's a great fucking headshot, dude. Like, that's amazing. But motherfucker, it's not going to move mountains. So we all fall into this trap because then the collective is aggrandizing. And I'm like, well, I don't want to fall by the wayside or look like I'm a basic bitch. So now I need to aggrandize. And then we all start doing it. So it becomes this sort of like contagion that we all fall prey to some extent. And it's quite unfortunate. You know?
You were talking about the verbiage on Artistic Alchemy and how we kind of deconstructed all of that. I know when I'm looking at workshops and I start reading all these paragraphs, I'm like, hold on a second, scroll. How much does it cost me? All right, $19.99. Meh. All right, let me go up and read what this is about. Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's what a lot of us do. Like, I would love to learn from Johnny. I ain't paying 10 grand for your stuff. You come out with, $12.99. All right, now we're talking. All right, we can push things a little bit, take out the credit card. But I look at it and I don't care what you say to me. It'll get rid of my wrinkles if I show up, or my love handles will go away, or any of that stuff if I come to your workshop, because that's what I'm going to learn. How much does it cost? That's my thing. That's my value metric, right?
Yep.
And everybody's a little bit different, but I think we forget to think about how people go through the process of a sale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there was one guy I saw on Instagram or TikTok, one of the socials, right? He was selling an email. But he was right up front about it. He's just like, listen, this is an ad. I'm trying to sell you something. Here's what I'm trying to sell you. If you don't like it, flame me on this. I don't care. Don't buy it. But some of you are going to like what I say, so buy my thing. Why? Because then I can make more things that you might buy, right? And he was just so upfront with it all. I was like, maybe I'll spend the $19 to buy this email sequence that I don't need.
Yeah, but you're like, I just respect the hell out of this degree of honesty and forthrightness.
That's exactly it, right? What was there was a movie, God, I think Dudley Moore a long time ago. Was it Real People or something like that? There were a bunch of mental patients that escaped and were writing ad copy for all these big brands, right? And that is what I feel like we need to go towards. We need to walk towards people that are completely insane and are just calling it like you see it. Toilet paper. It wipes your ass really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to have a bear in the woods and there's cuddles and all sorts of stuff. They're going to get me clean.
Flying in the background. Yeah.
Right. I just don't understand it. So I think getting back to your workshop, not comparing your workshop to toilet paper.
We've now transitioned from generator into grumpy old men. Everyone is just mad at me being fucking curmudgeons about the current state of affairs. So angry all the time.
So angry. And as you talk, I think what I'm going to do is, let's see, can I do this? And of course not. Why can't I just steal images from Google like I want to?
I know, you used to be able to do that. It was super simple.
Everything's a WebP image now. God, I can't stand that. So I think what I'm going to do while you're off doing your thing is
I'm doing some relighting.
We are going to do this. You're doing some relighting.
Everyone, pay attention. It's going to be really exciting.
No, it's absolutely not.
So exciting.
I am going to just put this on the screen. And we are just going to check. And I look over at your screen, and now you're
my posterized filter.
You're in Sin City. And I'll just kind of bring that on so people can see. But yeah, if we're gonna just talk shit, this is what we should do. We should just put up a picture of these two and just complain for an hour. All right. Let me shut this off.
I gotta take that. Okay.
All right. If you got them, smoke them. We're getting there. I feel kind of terrible. No, let me qualify that. I don't feel terrible.
I was like, this is new how?
Right. Right.
Now I'm on toy camera, so I don't know if this works or not. You tell me.
I actually kind of like that. So let me finish one thought before caffeinatedly going to another one. I feel terrible because I didn't take into account all these people joining on Instagram, and all they see is a split version of us. It is what it is. I'll figure it out for next time. If you're listening, thanks. But that's why I have this little check it out on the Stone Tree Creative YouTube channel. Or if you know me and you're friends with me, my personal Facebook page. This is all going out to all these different places. But Stone Tree Creative YouTube, you can kind of watch and comment and get in here with us. So I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, toy camera. Yeah. So I like this filter on you. And it's one of the things that with the Fuji stuff, they've got all these filters built in, right? They've got all the film simulations. But something that no one ever uses, or I never see people using it with Fuji, is their filters. And they've got this really cool toy camera filter built in to all of their cameras. And if you just find it and play with it, it gives it this really kind of cool, very green heavy, like distorted look. You got a little bit of a weird vignette, right? There's like this minor tilt shift thing going on where, you know, it's a little bit distorted up at above and below and a little diffuse and blurry. I love it. And the great thing about the Fuji stuff having this toy filter is that it only bakes it into JPEGs. There's no RAW.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're going to shoot it. You're going to get what you get, right? It's not like the film simulations where you can go through profiles. You get what you get. And I love that. I love
the committal aspect.
Just take me out of the whole artistic process. Meaning like, don't let me overthink this. Just give me what you're going to give me, right?
I don't know if I ever shared these with you, but when I did my workshop in Harlem, I went to the Fuji Films annual New York party.
I was so jealous to see that. Oh, God.
In fairness, Fuji, you know, I talked to you, I love you, but they had like no cameras for anyone to use. Fujifilm, that was wild. So like one of the ambassadors was lending out his camera, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to shoot with it. So I was like, fuck it. I went next door and they're like open bar, and Johnny's spidey sense went off. You know, I was like swinging from building to building to get to the open bar in New York, of all places. And people are just giving me drink tickets like they do. They're like, I can see the desperation. Here you go.
It's worth a mortgage payment in New York.
Yeah, exactly. But I ended up photographing the VP of Fuji and then a bunch of just sort of veterans in the industry on my Sony, which was ironic at this Fuji party. But we were in this bar that had no good lighting. I didn't have lights with me, so I used Christmas lights. And I'm like, shit, I'm using Christmas lights for a little bit of fill. And it was very like split light. And it was very dramatic. And I used the high contrast black and white on my Sony.
Yeah.
And I had that decision in the moment. I'm like, I can fuck with these later and I could have the latitude of raw, but I just wanted that moment. I was fucking hammered. A lot of the people were hammered. I didn't want to have to hem and haw about these later. And I love how these photos turned out because there was no second guessing. It was like point and shoot. You know, and I was adjusting in real time, but there is something to be said, I think, for us to shoot in JPEG, especially with a simulation, emulation preset. And you're just like, that's the fucking way it is. Like, I can't change the toy camera. I can't change the black and white. Oh, I underexposed it. Well, now it's just fucking eyes in the frame without a face. Like, that's just now my artistic take on this person. But it's good. It's good for us to not have all of that fucking latitude sometimes.
Yep. And Connie is saying, interesting split of screen view sharing. Yes, that is why at the bottom of the screen, I'm not being shitty with you, Connie, I promise. But for those of you that are joining on Instagram and seeing this weird thing, we went live before I knew Johnny was joining. He joined. I couldn't change my aspect ratio. What I'm saying is Johnny's fault. So
it is everything. And I'm going to say that we're doing like an Andy Warhol abstraction of live on IG. So if you don't get it, ruminate on it for some time and it might come to you.
You know, but to answer your question, Connie, if you're seeing this and you don't want to kind of just listen, go to YouTube, go to the Stone Tree Creative channel, and we're there in full Technicolor or toy camera as Johnny is doing his thing. And, you know, there is something, oh boy, we're changing again. We're going through all the emulations.
No, I'm back to I'm organic again. I feel like my natural.
You know, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what profile is being used there. Is that just kind of like your straight Sony?
Yeah, I think it's like their standard JPEG processing, the equivalent
Right.
of that. Yeah.
So, like on Fuji, we've got the Eterna film simulation, which is
Yeah.
kind of like the base where you don't want to shoot log or raw.
Yeah.
You shoot the Eterna, and it's going to give you a great level for
Like just
color
middle of the
grading,
road.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like to see reality, right? So I posted some pictures on Instagram earlier today of Makobi from our Alchemy back
Yep.
last October. And all of those images, with the exception of the black and white, were shot in JPEG on the Fuji in like the classic neg emulation, which is like really warm, really contrasty, kind of green and yellows in there a lot. And I love just baking right into that because it's a different look for me and I don't have to do anything over and above it. Whereas if I shoot in Eterna or Provia or kind of like one of their basics, I then bring it in and I fuck with it in Lightroom, or I throw on, infinite color panel, and I wind up in the exact same place that if I was shooting with toy camera or some other preset, right?
Yeah.
So I was just curious. It always looks great. I mean, it comes down to the lighting too, right? But I like the way that it does all of these greens.
Thank you.
Very nice, very earthy.
On that note, this dawned on me since you said Lightroom, and I'm a Capture One user. All C1 for life. But anyway, it made me think about this. I don't know if Matt, I don't know if you've seen this either, but they just released. I was using the beta version earlier this month, but they just released a new feature for Capture One, and it's called Match the Look. And it allows you to drop any photo, raw, JPEG, or otherwise, into the actual interface of Capture One, and it will identify all of the reasonable parameters of that photo and quickly match the look of your raw image specifically to that reference photo. It's fucking wild. So, like, I love all of Irving Penn's stuff, and obviously he had his special print processes, so there's a tint and color in his work that I haven't been able to emulate, and I pulled one of his photos of Picasso, dropped it in the beta, and it gave me this, like, warm platinum palladium print look out of the fucking gate, contrast and all. So anyone who makes styles and presets, I'm sorry, but Capture One has just come for your juggler. It's over.
I just opened Capture One, right? Because I do have it. I don't really use it a ton. And because I'm lazy and I don't want to learn it.
Yeah, I get
and it doesn't look like Lightroom, therefore bad, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, but I've been slowly trying to really get into it and understand. I'm like, all right, how do I use this? How do I do it? So what we're going to do here, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure I'm up to date. I don't know
so it hasn't been released. The actual feature isn't going to come to production Capture One until the end of this month.
And now so
you
what you're saying is,
the beta
what you're actually saying is Capture One is dog shit, and I shouldn't do any sort of demo on here. No, I get that. That's cool.
If that's how you're choosing to interpret it, then yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I did see that. I think I got an email on their list or something like that talking about matching styles. I didn't realize it hadn't been released yet.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I was part of that live broadcast that was announcing it, immediately downloaded the beta, tried it, and I was even looking at film scans and its ability. So it affects all global parameters within Capture One. So we're looking at color wheels, we're looking at contrast, we're looking at dynamic range, we're looking at exposure, we're looking at curves. It modifies all of those in your raw image relative to the reference image. So I could literally take one of Matt's photos that he's talking about with, let's say, this neg simulation, drop it in there, and then it's going to try and match my Sony file to the exact look of that. And it does a pretty damn good job. Like, I was blown away, impressed by this. So very rarely have I said with any software that it's a game changer. This tool is a literal fucking game changer. And I'm not a masking person, but they've also released their new AI masking for this, which allows you to, with one click, mask eyes, face, anything else, working with the raw file, and then be able to stack those layers that then apply as you copy and paste. So before, if you created a mask and you went to copy it, it would just copy into the specific image of where the face was, right? Now it's actually evaluating the face. So if you copy and paste that mask, it will then recalculate the mask to the face wherever it's at in the scene and take those changes directly to that. It's fucking madness. So Capture One shows violence with these updates because they're about to crush some shit.
You know, I picture like the Anchorman scene where all the news teams come out, and you got Lightroom over here, and then you've got Capture One over here with tridents and nets, right? Yeah, and
All
the
the
whole
time.
Ben Stiller comes out with a big mustache, right? So,
Yep.
what I was going to do was kind of give people that are watching an understanding of this, and I'm going to see if I don't know. Is this being shown on the screen? I can't tell.
I don't think I have the. I'm going to check on the actual live. Yes, I can see. Yeah, it's showing on the screen here.
Okay, so the picture from our workshop, right?
It's a picture of Sam, correct?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to bring up just kind of the develop module here, and I'm going to kind of move things around, so hopefully it's a little bit more centered for everybody to see. But this image was in the classic neg simulation. I just wanted to kind of show people, you know, what we're overall looking at here, and what we're talking about. So this was the neg simulation that I was shooting in a lot. This was adopted a little bit differently. I love, this is the Provia,
Yeah.
but if I change it to the classic neg, the tone difference, see how like the blues and everything comes out? Like, that's wild to me. I love this classic neg look so much more than their basic stuff. Their pro neg, I mean, even the Real is nice, but the like Adobe Color is here. Not loving it. So I was using it in all of these. Well, that's Provia. That's probably, let me find Makobi's stuff, or Jessica. Again, classic neg. It's giving me those greens and yellows that I really, really like. I don't know, like,
it definitely has like a Leibowitzian feel. So much of her stuff errs toward those tones on the back end.
And the thing is, this is, if you look on the panel, there is absolutely no change. This is what came out of the camera, right?
Yeah, straight out of camera.
So I just love how it works with contrast. I encourage anybody that has the ability to kind of play with profiles in camera and bake those JPEGs to do it, because I think it really just adds a whole different flavor, right? Again, here's the Provia, and then if I change it over to the classic neg, it just gives it a totally different feel. And I love that darker, more contrasty, greenish kind of look. I don't know. I'm going through a phase, call it my Eras Tour or whatever it is, but I'm just kind of going through this phase. So
green.
I just wanted to kind of bring that up a little bit because as we talk about this, without having people look at reference
context,
to Lightroom doing their AI masking and saying like, hey, mask out the backdrop and then apply it to these three, and it'll go through and it'll figure out where the backdrop is and it'll change that whole thing on the subsequent images. But it sounds like Capture One has taken that to kind of the next level. And with all of the tone matching, like you were saying with the Irving Penn stuff, like, do you feel like this will be just kind of like that people will lose the artistic curiosity in exploring for themselves versus
absolutely.
I'm going to get the Johnny Edward look and I'm going to drag over his latest editorial. And now,
well, I think that's exactly it. I think the funniest thing about it is that's exactly what people are going to do. And I get questions all the time on my color grading. So I don't think I'm going to get as many questions for Capture One users, because I think they're just going to pull one of my images off of Instagram or my website or a Google search and drop it in. Now, the irony being is they might come back to me because so much of my color grading happens on set. So for the way that I work, it's not editing. So they're going to be like, why don't these tones look right? I'm going to be like, well, I had a gentleman with tobacco skin and it was a tobacco backdrop and a tobacco floor and tobacco colored light. And so it's not going to translate. But I think for a lot of people, it is going to take curiosity away. I think it's a cool exploratory tool. And I also am a very open source person. So I like this idea of the lack of gatekeeping now. So if someone's like, well, I'm not going to give away how I do a thing, you're like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to reverse engineer it and then write a PDF on it, pop it on some pirate sites and be like, to look like this individual, this is exactly what you do. Because fuck it, knowledge should be free. But whatever.
I'm with you.
I don't know. I don't know if you caught that on the Boris FX thing. I started referencing being a kid, and I was talking about my pirated copies of Adobe, and I was like, They're about to fucking hit me with like a past tense lawsuit. They're like, Johnny Edward, the Johnny Creative, just admitted to using pirated Adobe products on a fucking broadcast or live. Let's fuck him up.
I'll go to jail with you. I stole Adobe shit all the time. Before it became the subscription service, right? I was just kind of like, no, Adobe came out with a new Photoshop. Let's head over to uTorrent and we'll get that. And now I've got that. And let me grab these 97 Eminem albums and also download those.
Unreleased track, 96, 8 Mile.
I started using Photoshop in what, 98, 97, 98, thereabouts. I was stealing the shit out of that, right? It took forever to download it, and then you had to burn it to disc or CD, and then hope that worked, and then find the serial from somebody else. And
of course,
it was a pain in the ass. I should have paid the money, but it was a little bit of fuck the man, right?
Those were good times.
Those were heady times, man. Yeah. I wrote down this quote because I saw it in a meme, and this is what I do. My life has become memes.
A meme.
And it was like, one of these kind of spiritual Ugg boot crystal type of meme pages. And it said, don't wait to do something good because the good old days are happening right now.
I saw that exact one. Yeah.
And I was just like, what a great reframe of everything.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for joining me.
That's just the hard out.
But no, I think as we're having this conversation about stealing Adobe products, not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah, scan
Boris
me.
Effects
I'm
all day long. I'll steal that stuff all day long. Boris,
I will attempt to cancel my subscription once a year for Adobe to get a better deal, but that's just common practice now. So fuck it.
You do that with cable. You do it with streaming services. Yeah. And let's talk about that for a second. Because that pisses me off. When I go, I tried to cancel. I got all the subscriptions, right? Because everybody does.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was something that I was canceling recently. I think it might have been Otter transcription or I don't know, something. And I was just like, all right, let me find it. And of course, it's buried in font, 6-point size down in the corner. Like, if you really want to cancel,
white font on white backdrop.
White font on white backdrop, right? And so I try to cancel it, and they're like, we're sorry to see you go. We'll drop it to half price if you want to stick around for 6 months. And then it's like, no, thanks. I'm just going to cancel. Hold on a second. If you don't cancel, we'll give it to you free for 2 years. And I'm like, nope, really don't like it. All right, listen, if you don't cancel it, we will give you a job. You can have all the products that you want. I'm like, no. All right, we'll make you CEO. Please don't cancel. I'm like, it's a $19 a month product. Stop trying to sell this so hard. It boggles my mind when companies do this over and over and over and over and over. Just let me cancel. Please, for the love of God, let me cancel this.
It will. This is me going into straight curmudgeon mode. So buckle up, everyone. I might even have to take my hat off for this for a second. But it's literally the equivalent. I'm a Verizon customer, and it's like, sign up for Verizon and get the new iPhone 16 Pro for free. I'm like, I've been a fucking customer for a decade. Where's my free phone? So there's just that aspect of it where it's like, if you're a new customer, we're going to reward you. People who don't really like the product, we're going to reward them. But if you're a loyalist, if you support us without questioning, if you evangelize the brand, if you share, you're going to get fucked over because you like what it is we're producing. You like our service, our product, or some combination thereof. It's fucking wild. It's madness. I'm going to put my hat back on.
I don't know if you remember, and it's kind of way back in the day, right? So when I was stealing stuff from Adobe, you'd hear these phone calls of people trying to cancel their cable or something. From, I think it was Comcast or something. And the guy's just like, cancel. I want to cancel. Well, if you just cancel, I just want to, it goes on for 20 minutes. And the guy is just, and it's a master class in this sales technique of redirection and wear them down. And
I was going to say wearing them down.
And I feel like that's exactly what everything has become. Again, going back to social media this morning, I'm either being sad or being sold to. And I'm like, all right, let me put that down. Let me go on the big screen now. Let me trade my small screen for the big screen and go surf the internet on my computer. And then you go on a page and then it's pop up, pop up, pop up. Sign up for my email list and get this. And then I'm like, as I'm about to go off the page, it recognizes the mouse movement going off the page. And now another interstitial comes in and it's just kind of like, before you leave, sign up for this thing. I get it. On a website, on a PC, on a computer, on a desktop, you have real estate for that. If you don't optimize for mobile, you can fuck yourself with a hammer. Because if I'm on this thing and those pop-ups come up and I can't shut them off, I want to hunt you down and, well, do bad things.
Don't piss off Matt with ill-placed, non-responsive.
I just realized how much of a rant I was going to go on, a big rant, and I really wish.
Do you know that SNL scene with Chris Farley when they give him the fake coffee and he realizes and has a meltdown? That would have been a perfect time for your meltdown. Just, you son of a bitch with your non-responsive shit.
Believe me, that's what I want to do. I want to just throw my desk up because I'm like, you don't understand. That is driving people away. And I know that a lot of this has been focused on marketing, but that's driving people away. It's doing exactly the opposite of what you want.
But the theatrics actually work. If I started trashing my studio, we would see the viewership just skyrocket right now because people would tune in for a second. They're like, Johnny's lighting his backdrops on fire. I want to watch this shit unfold.
We can make all sorts of clickbait stuff, right? Yeah. Photographer loses it. Click here to see what happens next.
He burns down the studio, gouges out eye with Fresnel glass on live stream. Just
you know what?
Really digging deep.
But I bet you'd be like, look how well this backdrop UK backdrop burns. Look at
Look at that. Singe marks on the end. That piece of glass had no problem getting through a tendon. Very well made. You don't see pieces like this anymore. It's fantastic. Multi-purpose tool.
You want to see more? Sign up for my Patreon.
Yeah, you want to break through a plate glass window, the Nanlite 720B, the light you're looking for. The ballast acts like a cannonball. Will sail through double pane windows without issue. Just run with it.
You want to kill someone with a Pro Photo Modifier really quickly? Well, you can set it up really quickly.
Yeah, like a bow and arrow.
Oh my God. These are the kind of things this is what happens to me, right? So this is how I start every day. And it's not healthy. And I understand that. I should probably be meditating. I should probably have far less caffeine. I absolutely should go for a walk and see daylight. Instead, I wake up and I get pop-ups and I want to punch a puppy. And I know that's not,
not the puppies.
Dog lover.
Cancel Matt, everyone. He's going to punch a puppy.
I know. It's on the internet. Someone's going to say something.
You're going to start getting trolled by all of these bot accounts like Puppy Puncher 3728.
I'm getting canceled and I don't even have something to cancel.
We're canceling the possibilities of your existence.
Yeah, I'm making sure that I have zero opportunities. So all these brands that we're watching, like, hey, maybe this guy's got something to say. Well, he punches puppies. So
he punches puppies, yeah.
Yeah, he can go.
Fuji was right here. The Fuji VP was watching this. God. And now you're shit out of luck.
And now they're like, no, I'm going to cancel that email. Oh my God. And you know what? I'm telling you, this is the question. Why don't you guys have 100,000 people watching? Because I am the boat anchor that brings Johnny's entire brand down. So this is what I want to create, what we're kind of missing in this business, right?
Yeah.
I look around at the photo industry and there's a lot of great podcasts. There's a lot of great content creators. I'm not shitting on anybody, but I feel like there's not a lot of truth sayers out there. because we're all worried about saying the wrong thing or being canceled or not getting the opportunity or not being asked to speak or not being given, an ambassadorship or anything like that. If those are your intentions, do it on the straight and level. I don't have any preconceived notion that I'm going to be anything other than what I am, which is a pretty decent photographer up in the sticks of Maine. I'm not trying to be Sal Cincato or Peter Hurley or guys that have spent their career growing and building and building and building. That's not what I want. It's not what I want out of life. So I can say what I want. It doesn't matter. People either watch or they won't watch. But I've only seen one other group, and it's more in the wedding industry. It's kind of niched down. It's called the Vendor Table. I don't know if you've seen this. And it's a couple of wedding photographers that just kind of talk like this. And they were talking the other day about ghosting, getting ghosted, and how clients will inquire and then ghost. And all they're saying is just tell us you don't want the stuff, right?
Yeah.
These are the topics that no one ever talks about, right? Yeah. But we're all kind of interested in, and we don't know how it works. And I would love to be that person that just kind of exposes it, not to be a shitty person and not to put anybody down, but let's just kind of call it what it is, right? This is all just a game. It's all a game, whether it's your own small studio, whether you're Canon and Nikon, this is all a game. We're trying to make money. We sell shit, right? Let's call it what it is. And we're all annoyed at the same stuff.
What taboo topics do all of you want Matt to talk about next? I feel this needs to be a suggestion box. We need to figure out a way for the anonymous suggestions, so someone can just be like, bloop. And then that could be just a topic for a fucking podcast or an episode.
I'd love it. So that's why I love watching, listening to you guys. But I know there are so many others who will love you. So tell them, right? Hey, if you make 3 reels about this, write a blog post, and then do a couple of things on your website about this, I will send you a gently used pack of Post-it notes. Here, they'll even be blue. I'll send you this right here because that'll be an equal exchange,
notes
right?
Are part and parcel to Matt's creative process. For those of you who don't know, as his producer, I can attest to this. These Post-it notes will change your life. Not only can you post them with noteworthy things, you can come back to them and remember those things that were noteworthy at that point in time. Organize your life with Matt's blue Post-it notes.
This is the ASMR background. You can just
every time you hear that, you're just going to think of Matty the Baddie and his blue notes.
Pavlovian. You hear this and oh my god,
I need to tune in to Generator right now. What was the last fucking episode of Generator?
Oh my god. So this is kind of funny. As we're talking about all the crap stuff that companies send out, right? When I was writing for magazines and doing all this stuff in the gun industry, I went down to my basement the other day and I've got bins of gear that was sent to me, holsters and pants and magazine pouches and all sorts of stuff. And I've just got all this junk that I used to have to review for these magazines. I want to get rid of it, but I also I was like, how can I make content out of this? This is stuff that's old, right? It's been replaced 8 years ago. What can I do with it? Because quite frankly, I don't want, I could give it away. I don't want to burden someone else with this piece of shit. So what do you do with stuff like that? And I've got it's not only the firearm stuff. I've got just closets full of camera stuff that I've been sent and given. And
I think as your self-appointed producer, this is what I'm going to suggest now. Yes, everyone, Johnny the producer. That's why they call me JP in the hood.
That's not the reason.
No, there's a lot of reasons. None of them are that reason. You're right. But what I would suggest is, so you have your gorgeous studio, you're in that area, bring all the stuff in, promote it, say you can come and take anything that you want, but you're talking about authentic portraits. You can take whatever you want from this pile of whatever is there. However, they have to let you get a solid, authentic portrait of them while they're there. So you get this catalog of people who come in and want the stuff that's useless while making it useful for you. And the only thing they have to trade is a moment in front of your lens to be who they are. And they can walk away with a magazine, a holster, and a fucking Yosemite Sam keychain or whatever else is floating around in there. That's what I would do.
That's brilliant. Thank you, self-appointed producer. Because I mean, seriously, the one thing that I used to do, I used to go out to SHOT Show. It's kind of like the WPPI of the gun world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And SHOT Show, like you go around and there are classes of people. You have the guys that are there just to get the tchotchkes, just to go to every menu. What are you giving away? What's free, right? You got a mouse pad? Awesome. You got a pen? Sweet. Like, and then there were companies that would have tiers of stuff depending on your status in the industry, right? So the media guys like me, we'd get the cool stuff. So I've got more fucking whiskey stones and like cigar tubes and challenge coins and knives and all of this stuff that was given to me that I'm like, all right, that's cool. Your brand is dog shit. You don't even exist anymore. What the hell am I going to do with this thing? I ain't repping your brand, bro. But
if you have a cigar tube that doubles over as a ballistic knife, I need that in my life. So you let me know.
I might have something like that. There's a lot of those like
a felony charge in Colorado is a fucking ballistic knife.
Yeah, there is nothing legal about half this stuff. So, but it's made of Kydex, right? So, there's one thing, right? So, for a while, we're way off photography now. So, for a while, I was a big knife guy. And I went to this thing called the Tactical Knife Invitational. It was in Las Vegas. It is invite only. And it's one of these like silent auctions where the knives are made, they're all ones of one and they're all made. And it's like, you have to buy a chance to bid on it. So you're paying like $100 a ticket to potentially get drawn to bid on the knife that starts at like 10 grand, right? So I was big into that knife world for a while. Never bought anything. Not like that. However, people would give me a bunch of knives, karambits and folders and all this stuff. And this one guy gave me, I don't know how he got around TSA with these things, but he came in with like a suitcase of them. And, you know, G10 scaling, like the G10 material that they put on net. He had a karambit carved out of that and like wrapped with paracord, and he's like, this will get through any metal detector. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this, because I'm the idiot that'll put it in my bag, forget about it, try to get through the airport, and suddenly I'm in Guantanamo. Like, don't want this to be the thing.
The WPPI, the last one you and me were at, not WPPI, but Portrait Masters in Phoenix. I had a multi-tool with me, just a multi-tool, basic fucking multi-tool. I got detained in fucking TSA for that thing. They stopped me, and I'm asking the person, like the manager is there. Now I'm surrounded by people. I'm dressed in like a fucking Frank Sinatra suit with all my tattoos. People are sweating. They're shielding their children. It's like this big fucking thing in DIA, and I'm like, can someone just fucking tell me what the fuck is happening right now? And they're like, you had a weapon on you and you attempted to bring a weapon inside the secure area. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they finally pull out this multi-tool, and I'm like, guys, ladies, individuals, I'm like, are you the longest fucking blade on this thing? I'm like, I could stab you repeatedly and it would do nothing. I might be able to pull out one of your molars if I held you down and I used the needle nose fucking pliers on this thing. Meanwhile, there's people going through with fucking backpacks with sharp edges. Some guy had a glass eye that was probably filled with C4. They just waved him along. And they're fucking with me. I'm like, I have 18 bottles of vodka or whatever the maximum thing you could bring for the shooters through the airport. You know, you could bring like a liter bag of I'm like, I could pour those things out on myself and immolate myself on the plane with a single spark. And you're fucking worried about this multi-tool that's branded like Bill's Bold multi-tool. It was the crazy, and of course I lost it. I had a complete fucking meltdown in the airport, which didn't help anything. So then they're like, they're gonna have to search you. I'm like, just get me nude right now. Let's do it, boys. Like, and that made the situation extremely worse. DPD got involved. And finally, I'm just like, just keep the multi-tool. That's what it really came down to. And one of the agents, as I'm walking away, I'm like, man, do you need that? He's like, yeah. I'm like, can you just put that in your pocket so you don't throw it away? Because it was actually a gift. He's like, sure. So it ended so unceremoniously with like Ted just putting the multi-tool in his pocket and then waving me along. But that was my fucking, I almost got on the no-fly list over pliers and a bottle opener. That almost happened to me. So that was fantastic.
I've got quite a few stories of those. I'm not going to share them now, but I've had to pay the stupidity tax more than once because just forgetful, dumb, right? And thankfully, have always made my flight. Not always feeling good about myself, and not always thinking that I'm going to escape this thing alive.
That's already like for me, that's already a 50% chance right out of the gate. Anyway.
So, moving on.
Okay.
I think there was something in there. The getting back to the like selling, bringing products in to have people come in to take portraits with them, right?
Yes.
I love that because we were talking about innovation earlier. That's a really innovative way to do it. I never even thought about doing something like that. It's actually kind of a neat idea because you're giving something to someone that they want, and I'm getting something out of it too.
Yeah.
What's something else, right? Because I'm just going to now just mine you for information. What are the things that we're all doing now as photographers that are in studios and have businesses and whatnot? What are we doing that is like not working, but everybody's doing it? Right? So I'll set the stage, right? Every photographer that I see now is like, you're going to be so empowered when you look at my photos. You're going to feel so good. And there's truth to it, right? But we're not doing it in any new ways. We're just kind of everybody's using the same marketing language. Everybody's using the same 40 over 40 or, whatever it is, project or campaign. Like we're all doing the same things in the hopes that it'll work. Is there anybody that that's doing something like really innovative?
I'll come back to the innovative thing. I will fire some shots at fucking Chat GPT right now, real quickly, because I will say everyone like this was the biggest thing. Where Chat GPT changed my life. It's writing all my copy, and now everything has been homogenized. I'm always keeping an eye out. I don't consider people competition, but I want to see what people in my vertical or in my area or in my industry are doing. All of the copy has become cloned copy. Because everyone's going in and it's like, well, you can teach it your voice and you can do it and do this. 99% of people don't do that. And like Renee Robin, going back to her from Boris FX, she asked a question recently on her Facebook page that was about monitor technology. This will come around. OLEDs versus IPS.
I saw this. I saw that.
Yeah, and
someone
responded, and she responded to the person. She's like, this sounds like a fucking Chat GPT answer. It is, isn't it? And he laughed and he's like, yes. So many people are integrating this into their marketing, into their verbiage. They're having their bios written by it. They're writing class descriptions with it. They're writing marketing materials. And it all sounds like the same exact fucking thing. And going back to this idea, like as a photographer, I think one of the best things we could do is develop a style, a photographic style. So I'm going to Matt because Matt's creating authentic portraits that are focused on presence and humanism in that moment. Now, if Matt's work looks like every other person's work, I'm not going to go to Matt for that because he doesn't have a unique value offering. Similarly, people operate on that same basis with language. People come to me because they're like, you're kind of a convoluted person. You have this verbose, flowery, poetic shit, and then you get on a live and you're like, fuckity, fuck. And I kind of feel like that's me too. I'm a multifaceted, multidimensional individual. Johnny, I want you to take my portrait. If I put in, write a class description for Johnny, it would be like, the most dynamic lighting you have ever seen with the maestro of the genre. Come join Johnny for one weekend of, and now I'm actually saying my own fucking thing and shooting myself in the foot. No, I'm joking. But point being is that we're watering all of the shit down, so stop. If you're going to have Chat GPT write you something, let it write it for you and then revise it. Take it and then write it and make it your own. I use Grammarly.
Yep.
I've been using Grammarly for years and no one knew what Grammarly was, or a lot of people didn't, because I'm so ADHD. I was firing off emails with like 17 errors in them, and I meant to say pool and instead I said poo. So it's like I had a lot of fun swimming in your poo, to a client or something, and it just didn't fucking read right. Bad taste. So I got Grammarly because it was correcting those things. Now AI has been integrated into Grammarly. What it constantly does is it makes my fucking writing look boring, because it'll be like, for clarity, use something like I don't know, tight instead of constrictive. And I'm like, no, I like the fucking word constrictive. Right. I mask my inadequacy with vocabulary. I want complicated fucking words to create distance between me and society. That's part of my archetype. Don't fuck with my words. So everything. And then we're all using the same Evoto and Imogen. Right. So then let's edit with the same tools, and let's generate with the same tools, and let's populate with the same tools, and yet let's use the same fucking templates. And I could just see people leaving now because they don't want to hear this shit. They're like, fuck this guy. I love ChatGPT. I would go to war for it. Rock, flag, eagle, and ChatGPT. Fucking. But I mean, so it's just insane. So I would advise all of you to just back the fuck up for a second on that and go back to actually doing things yourself. Also, I'm not gonna lie. That's it. Fucking hat's coming back off. I don't know if it was that last shot of espresso I did that's finally fucking hitting me. But people talk now. There's some of you out there who are literally superhuman individuals. You have like 17 kids. You're polygamous, so you have 4 partners, you have properties, you're running 4 different businesses, you have a turtle sanctuary. It's fucking wild. The fact that you can do all of this simultaneously makes me sick with envy because I can barely manage myself as a middle-aged man, right? But there are so many others who are like, it saves me so much time. And I'm like, time for fucking what? You're the same person who just posted that your screen time was 7 hours a day. How much more free time do you really fucking need to not be able to write your own stuff? So that's one of the craziest things about society right now. Well, it's about efficiency. It's about efficiency. And then there's constantly people like, I'm bored. I don't know what to fucking do. I don't know what to do with my day. I'm spending all day doing these things that aren't good for me. I'm drinking, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm scrolling. But I need more time to keep doing those things that are making me more dissociated from myself. So I don't even it's the snake eating its tail thing. So I don't know, people. I'm just ranting for a second, but like,
I don't know if when I started this stream 2 hours and 28 minutes ago, good Lord. When I started doing this, I started by talking about AI, and you might have been setting things up or having more espresso.
I didn't catch that.
All right,
iceberg.
So I'm gonna go back to the beginning a little bit, and again, I'm going to say if you're on Instagram, we don't have any watchers now, but maybe they'll chime in a second. But if you're there, go to the YouTube channel instead. You're going to see both of us instead of just this weird split down the middle. Okay, so I started the whole stream because I ran into something lately that has blown my mind. And I'm with you that ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever you're using, all sounds relatively repetitious, right?
Yeah.
So repetitive. Did I say repetitious? Is that a fucking word?
Captain Redundancy. No, I think it is. I think repetition.
So the point is, like, anytime I put something in and it's like I say, hey, write me a paragraph about this. Well, it's always going to say something like, it's not just a photograph, it's a view and a glimpse into your journey, right? And everybody sounds the same way, but it's always this comparative sentence structure.
Yeah.
So I get tired of that because I do what most people do with ChatGPT, and what you were talking about is I'll write something, I'll get the feeling, rewrite it, then I'll revise it, add my own words in, cut things out. And that way it feels a little bit more me. I don't care if people know that I use it to help me be more efficient,
of course.
But understand that I'm never like just copy paste.
Yeah.
So I'm not disillusioned by what AI is. When it comes to text, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Then there is audio where you can produce. This was wild to me.
Yeah.
For generator, and I'm going to bring it up. So I'm going to throw my headphone back in so people can hear this. And I'm going to change up how things are coming out so that I can stream something over to everybody out there. So I go on this site called Udio, U-D-I-O. I think
I know what you're talking about.
Right? So Udio is kind of like AI song production. And so with Generator, the intro music, it's this very kind of like loungy music that sounds like a Las Vegas lounge, right? And kind of neat, but I'm getting kind of tired of it as being my intro music. So I go on Udio and I'm like, I want to create something that is in a hip hop style that's maybe either like boom bap New York 1990 style or Wu-Tang or like British gab type of stuff. Like I was playing with all these different styles and it shot out these like theme songs, and I'm going to play on, like, I don't know what you're going to be able to hear, but I'm going to try to play this through and see if this works.
I'm
But
going to mute so I can listen on my end.
all right, so let's see what this does. Now, I went through iteration after iteration after iteration because it lets you do like a 30-second verse, and then you can add it, extend before or after, and it adds more, more words in. So I started with version 1 and then version 2 and then version 2.1 and 2.11 and then 2.2. And so eventually I got to this version, which is kind of the, I don't want to say final, but like a decent version. And this is what it sounds like.
In the studio, we light up the night. Culture in the making, every rhyme we recite. Spinning stories versus spinning like a typhoon. Artists in the cipher, ready to bloom. The best spark the thought waves, wash over the expression on the rise, no defeat. We compete. Elevate the craft, let the session commence. Sonic architects building sense from suspense. Have a seat in studio, pod to seat. I'm solid, take a line, turn the mics on, we dive deep. We can voice spread the vibe with no archive, stay alive. Art in progress, keep it live. Hey, creation's out the hive. Hey, creativity's the motive, we ain't tossing.
So with that, it's amazing. I gave it like, hey, I want to have a podcast about creativity, and I want it to sound kind of like New York style. And it pops that out. All the verses, all the beats, all the stuff, all AI, blew me away. Don't shut off your stuff yet, Johnny, because I'm going to go do something else. So that was Udio, U-D-I-O. You can look that up. Now, I was talking at the very beginning of the podcast about Google Notebook. And what Google Notebook is this kind of beta thing out there right now. It's free. Anybody can go play with it. So you feed it information. I fed it my websites and both StoneTreeCreative.com, stuff for studios. I fed in an ebook that I was writing about human connection in portraits, and it produced this, which absolutely blew my mind.
All right, so we're diving into portrait photography today,
Right.
but like more than just like, point and shoot.
Right.
We're talking about those photos that like really draw you in,
Those ones that like have a soul to them.
Exactly. And I've been looking through this ebook and website by Matt Stagliano.
Oh yeah, he's great.
And he talks about how like the key to all of this is connection.
It's so true though.
And I'll be honest, as a photographer, I get so caught up in like the technical stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. The settings and lighting and all that.
Yeah.
This is AI creating a podcast with conversations and nuance and intonality and back and forth. And I'll skim through it just a little bit. I'll just kind of go to the middle.
Candles at his shoots.
I know, right? It's kind of unexpected.
Yeah. Stagliano, he creates this whole experience for his subjects.
Oh yeah, he talks about that. Like the
Yeah.
environment, the vibe.
Yeah. Like I read that he uses scented candles at his shoots.
I know, right? It's kind of unexpected.
Yeah. Like I'm picturing like a spa day, not a photo shoot.
But that's the point, right? It's about making people feel comfortable at ease.
Makes sense.
This is unbelievable to me. And I started the whole pod, like this whole stream tonight with this, because I was like, if you're looking for something, Jeff said in the comments, humans can sense AI, our brains learn to pick it up. Absolutely 1000%. What blew me away about this is that I fed it the information, it produced one, I downloaded it, I deleted what was on Google Notebook. I fed it more information, I produced another one. And they're both different, but they all talk about what I do in a way that's natural, that sounds good. And I could use that in my marketing. If I was a little bit more disingenuous than I already am, I could be like, yeah, I was on this podcast and they were talking about what I do and I didn't even know. And it's just amazing. And I found it. But you can do that shit with this. Like, from a marketing standpoint, it was talking about how I do my portraits in my experience in my studio, sometimes better than I do it. The good thing is it's reading the text that I created. It's reading the stuff that I wrote, which is all from me. It's all my stuff. But this AI is interpreting it, and it wasn't so much that it was getting the facts right. It's that you can hear them breathe. You can hear them go, at the moment that they would actually do that. And that is the thing that fascinates me about this, is that we can now produce our own marketing materials in new and innovative ways. Oh, we're really losing Johnny. All right. So that we're producing these things so it sounds so real and so natural. I love it because it's going to help me. I'm terrified of it because I have no idea what to believe from this point forward. So I just wanted to play those couple of things. If you're looking for it and you want to play with it yourself, it's Google Notebook. Check it out. I think that's, it's worth looking at, having it read your website and seeing what it pumps out. Johnny, I would say send it to like your Beyond the Portrait page and see what it produces and what the conversation is between these two. Now, the thing that you pick up on after you listen to a few different versions is that they're basically saying the same thing. They're agreeing with each other. They're repeating each other. But that's kind of what we do in conversation as humans anyway, right? You say something, I agree with it. I add my little context, and you agree with it, and you add your little context, right? It's very vanilla and, uplifting and wonderful. But from a marketing standpoint, this is bananas to me, that this is a product that anybody can use for free, and you just kind of keep giving it stuff until it spits out what you want it to. And you can't really do a whole lot of editing with it, but I can take that audio file and then chop it up and edit it into reels, or I can, put something out that promotes my business without it having to be my face and my voice. And that just fascinates me where this is going. Pratik said something the other day about like ChatGPT was released like 2 years ago and we're here. What is the next 2, 5, 10 years going to look like from the standpoint of what we can believe and what we can't believe? I'm not going to go down that whole road with AI right now, but Johnny, like that was the thing. I just wanted you to hear that and kind of get your thoughts, not only on the music, which is like, all right, I produced that a while back. That was back in May. And then these overviews, these podcasts I produced in October. So in like 6 months, it was a whole different ball game of reality and nuance when it came to the audio portion of AI.
I think you need to pull the headphones. I'm hearing your side.
Yep.
Is it a source thing? Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Okay.
So no, that was fucking wild. I was literally listening, and that's why I was just bobbing my head. First of all, the song was a banger. Yeah, it was. But I mean, the podcast thing had me fucking tripping a little bit, to be completely honest. Like you said, listening to the intonation, the conversation, it wasn't polished. It felt very authentic. It was human. The pauses, the interactions, even them talking over each other a little. So it wasn't even terribly polite. So it felt so real. And once again, if you were disingenuous, you could have just made up a podcast name. Hey, on the Photography Roundtable, they just did a recent episode. Jessica and Chris did an episode about me if you want to give it a listen, and have it track back to something or nowhere. So it's wild. It's just fucking wild to me. I don't know. It's sort of mind bending that you could create this whole narrative, whether it's accurate or not, about yourself with now supporting documentation, supporting video, supporting audio, supporting articles. And it reminds me of back in the day. I remember it was like 8 years ago, and I had no right going out after brand deals. But some people were like, hey, get one of these companies to do a press release for you. You pay them. They create all of this stuff about you. They put it out there. Now it's searchable on Google and other places. The companies like Johnny Edward. And now there's 4 things that come up that have 10,000 views that are referencing me. I mean, this is that on fucking massive amounts of steroids, We're like, over the course of a month, I could pick up a camera and then create this context that I'm well-known, that I'm experienced, that I've worked with high-level people. So it's like the nefarious part of my mind that I never exercise because I have too many fucking morals and scruples, which has held me back in many ways. But it just went fucking just off the charts. Like, holy shit, this is a thing.
And this is what blew me away about it is
I'm not going to, like, each one is about 7.5 minutes long, which is an insane amount of conversation to have.
Yeah.
And if I were to take that audio and then dump it into a transcription service, now I've got quotes that I can put out there. But the thing that got me about the conversation, again, it wasn't so much the natural intonation and the breath work and the speaking over each other. It's the logic and reason that it was using as it talked about my business, as it talked about, like, yeah, he wants to create this experience. And then they're like, and he kind of does the same thing with stuff for studios, because over there he's teaching you about this. And they were making these inferences and connections between the different aspects of the business that all kind of built upon each other. Then they would use the actual phrasing that I have in some of my blog posts or in the subtitles on some of my pages, or maybe a phrase that I used on, one of my courses. And they were tying it together so seamlessly that I forgot for a second that I was listening to AI. I was just like, this sounds pretty good. Like, I'd love to be on a podcast and have someone talking to me about this. So either A, I just found fake friends that I'm just going to listen to and they're just going to pump me up every day. Or, it's an opportunity for us to look at marketing in a different way. I think I could absolutely use this and put this out and say, hey, listen, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's what AI produced. This is something that is going to change how we do our own marketing and integrate that social proof thing, right? Because if we hear someone talking about something, we're more often going to follow up and look at that thing, right?
Yeah.
So with this, if we're able to produce audio of this quality that's talking about things in the way that we want, that we get to direct from behind the scenes with our words and our content, and then have a generative thing where they are discussing it and it sounds natural, how hard is that to promote through other channels and drive people to your site? I'm not saying that there aren't ethics involved in all of this. All I'm saying is these tools are becoming so phenomenal so quickly that it's hard to fathom that it's only been around, like the whole AI sweeping the nation thing has only been around for what, a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, it's madness, especially with exponential growth and things like that.
Right.
We are emerging into the area of nothing being fucking true. And I mean, even the whole avatar thing that's now there, like you had said, now someone can speak for you. So you feed it a script, you generate this script, and you feed it to someone who's, you're targeting a demographic hypothetically of middle-aged women. So then your avatar is a middle-aged woman who has a certain look, a certain aesthetic, who's hitting this sub niche of individuals talking about you, what you do, and how you do it. It's so fucking dystopian. Like my butthole is firmly clenched right now. That's how intense I feel about it.
Well, it's, back in the day, do you remember there was a thing, I don't know, time is distorted in my brain. I'll say it was 5 years ago. It was probably 1998. I have no idea, but very creepy. I love that look. The uplighting really does a lot for your cheekbones. So years ago, you could create, like, this hand came out on the screen and like was a pencil and it sketched everything for you, right? So you'd give it the JPEG and then you'd pass through this program and then it would produce this kind of like hand-drawn sketch video for you, right? It was an explainer video thing. And that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And that blew my mind. And I absolutely used it for clients, created some stuff, for it, created some stuff with it for some people. Yeah. And I thought that was like, this is as good as it's going to get, man. This is as good as technology is ever going to be, right? This fake hand is drawing stuff. There's never going to be anything better. Fast forward, 1,500 days. And here we are with the ability to create an avatar, have its mouth move in a natural way on video, right?
Yeah.
You see these videos on TikTok and YouTube and Reels and whatnot. It's not, it's not a real person, but you get drawn into it.
Yep.
and the audio's good and the visual's good enough.
Yep.
And now I'm starting to believe that. I'm not built for this, man. I've killed way too many brain cells to be able to sort through this. This is not going to be good for me going forward.
To be honest, though, I don't think any of us are built for it. I think that we're going to hit a wall here with logical dissonance, where there used to be some semblance of authority in what I would consider to be a modern civilized society, and that is now gone. Like those lines have dissipated. So, talking about the prevailing like fear and anxiety and all of this type of stuff, that's only going to magnify exponentially, because now there's going to be this massive disconnect between what I know is real and what's not. So I'm constantly existing in a state of artificialness. Right. And if you're an intellectual person to any degree, you start to question your own integrity and your own authenticity in the midst of that when you're constantly being washed over and moved through by that. So the psychological ramifications, I think, of this, like we probably won't get the full gist of it in our lifetimes, but this represents a massive paradigm shift in how we just operate as fucking human beings and how we exist and manage and cope and everything.
Where do you think the rebellion will start? Right? So at some point the scales will tip and the pendulum will go too far to one side, and people will start to rebel against what they're being told and shown, and there will be this move towards, it's kind of like going off the grid, right? I don't want the government in my business. I don't want to be paying an electric bill. Like, I'm going to do everything for myself, and I'm going to weave my own underwear and like all that sort of stuff. And I think we're going to hit that point at some point where the disconnection, the unplugging really starts to happen. And we go from this global community where everybody's tied into everybody on the planet to smaller community-based focus. How can you help your neighbor? How can you communicate with your neighbor? All of that. There will be that point where we will swing back to that. What do you think will be the tipping point? Will it be in an election? Will it be, a scandal, right? What do you think will be the tipping point in all of this?
I think it's going to be something that happens that probably, as a society, we don't like to relate to things. And I was going to say violence, but also violence hasn't changed a lot for a lot of people. But I think there's going to be something that occurs, whether it's some sort of revolt, physical revolt where there is injury or loss of life, and it's based on a falsity. And then it turns out that whatever the movements are that acted or reacted, that the pretense, the preface of it was actually not real. It was fabricated. And I think at that point, people are going to see this and go, oh my gosh, this is insidious. This is threatening life. This is threatening livelihood. This is threatening certainty. It's threatening me. Like, until it gets brought to everyone's front door, so to speak, it's that bit. It happens in the neighborhood across the way, and you're like, it's a mile away, and then it's half a mile away, and then it's a block away. But then when it's at your front door, then you do something. So I think there's going to be something that has far-ranging consequence for a lot of people, and unfortunately, it'll probably be catastrophic or cataclysmic to some level. And then exactly what you say, I believe that people are going to pull back and go, all right, I need to remove myself, my loved ones, those I care about and for, away from this insofar as I can, and return to something that is actually rooted in legitimate reality, whatever the fuck that even means anymore.
As he hides his face behind black.
Only the shadow knows.
Only the shadows. No, I think you're right. And I think it's what was the movie? Dustin Hoffman, Wag the Dog, right?
Yeah.
Where there was an election going on, and there was a president in a scandal, and they're like, the election's coming up. How do we detract from the scandal? Let's create a war in a country that no one really kind of knows about, and we'll show all these things, and then the president can say we're sending all this aid and save the day, right? We just got to get to the election and get this person in office. And I think that is the level that once we understand that deception that goes on, and there is that belief that we can't believe anything anymore, I think that's where you'll start to see a lot of the revolt. Because no matter how altruistic it may seem, or what evangelist is out there saying, the Elon Musks of the world saying, we're doing this for good, and Jeff Bezos gets in his big cock-shaped rocket and goes to the moon, and it's just like, we're doing this for humanity. No one believes that anymore. And I think once the trust is eroded, and it's gone beyond the novelty of being able to create all this stuff, and people start to grasp the gravity of how it's shaping society in not good ways, right? We're probably already there, and I'm just, I'm ignorant to the fact that these things are going on. But it's making misinformation, it's making deception so much easier. That
very much.
I've been saying this for a while. I'm worried about the ethical implications of it, right? And it's not so much that I feel like I'm going to be affected by it too much, because I think I can see it happening. But the masses, right, that aren't tuned into technology, that aren't playing with the tools and understand what it is, they don't have a clue that this isn't real. So,
and I mean, a use case scenario there is, let's say that someone hypothetically, I'll fucking be egoic. Someone's like, fuck Johnny and his relationship with Nanlight. He's a conceited piece of shit. He doesn't show his face on live streams anymore. I wrote loathe
that
him.
This morning.
Exactly. They decide, I'm going to generate a video of Johnny using the software that's highly advanced. So I've created an avatar of Johnny, and it looks like him, and it's dressed in one of his outfits that it's referenced, and it's using my voice for modulation. So it feeds it samples of my voices. And I'm out with the sign that says some really bigoted, awful, misogynistic shit. And then it starts spreading on something like Facebook, where it's like, hey, I see you follow Johnny. Do you know who he really is? Because I caught this video of him doing this. Cataclysmic. Someone literally taking a shit over the course of 4.5 minutes could create something that would literally have career lasting, life lasting, maybe career ending repercussions for me on a fucking whim, because I took 72 hours to get back to them, or I didn't want to give them the raw files from the photo shoot. So the weaponization of this, and then you're like, well, I mean, we could have it so a video has to have credentials proving it's fucking real. They override that and then fake the credentials. This has been a cat and mouse game that's now coming to the forefront. And this circles back to what we were talking about with pirated Adobe products.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. So we're doing real-time verification now, and then someone's like, well, fuck you. I'm going to write a little program that continuously verifies that this software is real, so I'm part of the subscription model getting updates, but I'm not paying a cent. So it's the amount, the impact, the collateral damage of these emerging technologies on literally everyday people like you and me is going to be fucking inconceivable as it gains just a bit more polish and fucking continuity.
It's the debate that I remember having when I was working for Cisco Systems back in the day, and was in IT and InfoSec, and was really kind of tied into a little bit more of the hacking scene, and just knew a lot more about a lot more technologically. There was a debate that was going on about, as services like AOL, as chat rooms, as more places got together, community boards, there was the debate about whether or not you had to. Oh, Johnny, we lost your camera.
Entirely. I lost my battery.
Well, are you going to be able to replace that or plug it in, or are we done?
No, I can replace it for sure.
Okay.
Watch this, everyone. You want to see the difference a webcam makes for the 7 people who are watching right now? A little bit less dramatic this way. So I'm going to go back to my camera, do a quick battery swap. I'll be right back.
Cool. Turn a light on while you're at it. So the debate that we were having was, should you have to use ID to have a name online? Meaning, there's no hiding behind Spider-Man Web Slinger 6502. You had to be Johnny Edward, and that carried across all of your presence on the web, right? It's kind of like a unified presence on the web, that you had to provide your ID so that you couldn't hide behind anonymity, and anything you said or produced or put online was tied back to you, your digital fingerprint, right? And it couldn't be spoofed. You couldn't fake it in any way. You couldn't use aliases or anything like that. Granted, there's always ways around these things, but I'm talking mass implementation. If you're able to do something like that, maybe there's a chance for us to survive this. But if we're not giving any thought to how to identify what is real versus what is not real, I think it's only going to end in disaster. And I love technology. I love everything about it. It's all I want. Anything that plugs in, I'm super cool with. But the way that it's being used and the way that we are allowing ourselves to be manipulated by it, because we want things to be easy and we don't want to have to work hard and we want it to be efficient, and the operation and safety of this battery cannot be guaranteed, Johnny. I think if we allow these things, if we allow ourselves to get lazy and not be critical of what's being presented to us, this ain't going to go well in any regard for any business anywhere. Your whole scenario about getting canceled because someone got pissed off that you didn't get back to them fast enough, it's kind of already happening, right? Yelp reviews, Google reviews. I see people like, they'll post something like, oh, I didn't get my ice cream fast enough. All right, internet, do your thing. And everybody goes to this poor person's food truck and just blast them with one-star reviews. And they can't do anything about it. They can't fight it. You go back to Google and they're like, well, there might have been a legit thing, you know? And you're ruined.
And
so,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so this is kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And the ethics and the morality involved in it are razor thin, like where this is going to go. Yeah, it really freaks me out.
Well, to be honest, I think that for the people who are really champion this tech, and I don't mean like the people who are just like, this is fucking cool, but the people who are behind the development of this and the advancement of it, I do think that there's going to be a looking back on it like there was with the atomic fucking bomb, where there's going to be all of these people who after the fact are going to want regulatory frameworks around their baby to say, we did not know what we were unleashing. We did not realize the caliber of the calamity of this developmentally. We were so wrapped in getting to it first, or corporate competitiveness or nationalism or whatever it might be, that we created this hydra and we had no fucking idea how many heads it was going to have or how big those heads would get respectively. And to your point, what you're saying about how it's being used now, there's a great coffee shop right by me. Everyone, if you're in the Denver area, check out Subjective Coffee. They do not sponsor me. They give me free coffees every once in a while. I'll be fully transparent. But point being is I walked in and they're a great group of people. They're just legitimate fucking people. They're real. They're authentic. They do good things in the community. They have phenomenal fucking coffee. They roast everything in house. But one of the baristas, who's their kind of marketing person, he's a really great guy. And he was in a mood and I was like, what's going on? And he was sharing with another person who was there. Someone left him a 1-star review, him specifically, called him out by name in this review. This person, he's like me. He has a photographic memory. He remembers fucking faces. I'll never forget a face. Right. Someone could come up to me and be like, Johnny, I'm like, you're the fucking asshole who kicked me when I was 7 years old. Yeah, you said you hated little blondes, that I look like a Children of the Corn, and you fucking kicked me, you dick. I remember you. Like, that's how I am. And so is he. He's like, I know for certain this person has never been in here. He's like, I showed this to everyone else, but he's such a sensitive dude. He gives a shit about what he does. He cares about the quality of his work. He cares about the impact that he makes. He cares about what people have to say. This fucked him up. We sat there and talked about this, and this 1-star review that was just like blah, blah, got in his fucking head.
Sure.
So outside of the career implications, the psychological implications, especially for a society and a group of people where most of us are already on edge, like it used to be like, oh man, what's going on? You're like, oh, I'm fucking anxious or depressed. Now you say that, everyone's like, yeah, no shit. Everyone's anxious and fucking depressed. We all just wake up in the morning and put on our hard hats and are like, what's going to collapse on me fucking today? Let me just start tensing up. So we're on this tight wire anyway. And then you inject something like that into somebody's life who's already hanging on by a thread, whose coping mechanisms have already been stretched so goddamn thin, like butter spread too thinly on bread. And you're like, what does that do to the person? Do they react internally? Do they lash out to the world? Do they lash out at their family? Do they engage in self-harm? So just the mass effect that this is going to have on a society that's already psychologically beyond fucking strained, with a system that has no sort of reprieve or no support base if you're actually struggling. And to me, that's the real nightmare of this, is what happens when you take a bunch of people who have been pushed to the absolute edge and you push them a little bit further, or you light a fire under them when they're full of fucking gasoline. And so it's this powder keg of people who just don't even know what to do anymore, who are just operating autonomously like, I'm just trying to make enough money to pay my bills, to not have my car revoked, or to not lose my house, to put basic food on the table for my family. And then you go, by the way, here's a fake video of you slapping your kid, Billy, in his mouth. And even though Billy probably deserved it, don't hit your kids, everyone. It's a fake fucking video. And now the PTA is in an uproar and they're talking about expelling you from the HOA because you're physically abusive. That is fucking insane. And that's a very low level one person. So then I think about state. Now I'm going to get conspiratorial. I should be smoking more weed. And now I think about state sanctioned hacking and what goes on beyond that. And now you have governments attacking the populace in that way of other governments to create this massive discord from within where everyone is just going fucking ape shit on one another. And you don't even have to worry about doing anything because we're just tearing each other apart like ribbons because of this mass psychological effect. It's fucking like, it's beyond dystopian. It's like a Bekziksi painting come to life through fucking Avatar. It's wild.
It makes me think of that silly cliched trope, hurt people, right? So the people that are just kind of sad and they're always just disappointed, they're the ones that are going to be out there. I'm going to leave you a 1-star review because I'm just having a shitty day. And it doesn't matter that I don't even know who you are or where your business is. I'm just going to fuck with somebody today. We used to do it with the phone book, right? You'd call somebody up and like prank call them, right?
Boy style.
But now there are real world implications to all of that.
Yeah.
And I think that we're just heading in a direction where it's more important than ever to have your eyes wide open. And I'm not saying that you need to distrust everything, but having a bit of healthy skepticism on anything that you're getting outside of your close friends or your family or people that you trust, having that little bit of skepticism goes a long way. I love politics. I love it. I love the spin. I love the theater. I love all of it. And I don't believe a fucking one of them that they're telling me the truth, right?
Yeah.
And I watch all of the stations and hear all of the spin because I want to hear everything and realize that we're being fed shit from and these are from like people on normal stations that are saying, this candidate, that candidate, whatever.
Yeah, it's not like the underground network alliance. This is CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and everything.
1,000%. It's not, whoever's blog. But now that nobody guys blog down in the basement with the right marketing from AI and distribution with Reels and all of the avatars that are digitally created, now they've got a voice parallel to Fox and CNN. And Perez Hilton, right? Like that whole thing. Yeah. I think we've just entered a point where it's become so overwhelming, so exhausting. And I'm going to bring up a couple of things. Ashanta, God, I love Shanta. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. And it always baffles me. People don't consider that actions have consequences. Fuck around and find out, right? And I think that's the big part of this is people don't realize from the anonymity of their keyboard, I can say and do whatever I want. Catch me outside, as a great prophet once said on the Dr. Phil show. Catch me outside, because we're going to have a different conversation. If you affect my life negatively and we've never interacted, you've never seen anything, you've never been with me at all, you don't have a say. But now you do. And that's what's the scary part. I went into a bar one night, and local place around here, a little burger joint. And there's a guy that I kind of know from town, but we're not friends. We're kind of colleagues and whatnot. And he's a little weird, but he's relatively harmless. Yeah. And I was sitting there and we struck up conversation because we were like the last few people at the bar and a tiny town. Yeah. And I started talking about I was going to go home and record a podcast. Oh, you got a podcast? Yeah, it's Generator, and go check it out here and there. Up to that point, I had gotten nothing but 5-star reviews. The next day, I had a 2-star review with no name, no anything attached. This guy I'm not one to be like, oh, I think it was this guy. I can pretty much tell.
It was
I don't
that
have
guy.
a big podcast, no big audience. Not a whole lot of people are searching Apple for, give me some anonymous photographer that has opinions about stuff. Let me find that podcast. No one's searching for that. So for it to be found and then get a 2-star review with no comments, no name, I'm like, you did that just because you're a dick. Like, that's it. You had nothing better to do than to be a dick and to try to hurt me because you're sad on the inside.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time I'm going to buy you a beer and then spill it all over you. You know why? Because I want to be a dick. It bothers me that people do things like that. That is a tiny, tiny little example that affected my life. We're talking mass scale manipulation that's going on, and I'll put on my little tinfoil hat and I'll start talking about this stuff, but it just really, it scares the shit out of me that people aren't more up to date on the tools that are being used to manipulate. You don't have to be an expert. Just understand how this stuff is being done.
Well, I agree. And I mean, a prime example of that was everything that tragically happened in North Carolina and the Lower Eastern United States. And then what was going on with that photo of the girl
and the dog?
The Pulitzer Prize winning photo, and the fact that got shared and got that much bit, and the fact that people couldn't critically analyze, to me, it looked like an illustration. This isn't me looking at that photo and going like, well, you can tell by the catch lights in her eyes. It wasn't technical. It did not look real. Right. It literally looked like graphics, and yet the vast majority of people were sharing this, intellectual people who have backgrounds in art, because of fervor, because of fear, because of tragedy. Exactly. So they're looking past it and they're operating on, oh my gosh, this is the reality of it. This encapsulates what's going on. This poor little girl, this poor puppy, two innocents affected, being pulled out of this tragedy. And so the bit of logic that was there is now overridden entirely. And it got shared en masse. So that's the thing when I think about this and technology evolving, is it doesn't even have to be a good deep fake and people will fucking go to war over it. So then we get something that is tangibly indecipherable from fucking reality. Someone V for Vendettas their way into a live broadcast, and suddenly it's a political figure or a social figure speaking in real time, referencing things that are happening outside of your fucking window. People will come unzipped. And it's not going to take that much. And it's not me being jaded. It's just looking outside and being like, there's nothing but kindling outside of my house, and there's a guy with a flamethrower walking toward it. This is not going to turn out well for my property.
This brings me back to the glory days of COVID, where everybody was learning to use Zoom, and where people didn't know how to use Zoom, and they'd be broadcasting the channel, and there'd be some guy at home like eating Cheetos going, I'll join. And then suddenly, Doug with the Cheeto-stained fingers is just sitting there in his underwear. No one knows how to get rid of him. And he's on a city council meeting. And he's just kind of sitting there. Hey, guys, what's going on, right? I love those things. Harmless, funny, but indicative of what can be done, right? People aren't aware that with the great power comes great responsibility. And I think what you were saying about, especially with your Oppenheimer vibe that you have going on, about, how we create things because we want to be able to push humanity forward and create and prove that we are better than just human. We are superhuman. We are changing the world. We're doing these things, and we forget that they can hurt people. We forget about the consequences that come with it, as Ashanta was saying. And I think you're starting to see in that AI world executives saying, hey, guys, we already let Pandora's box open. We're kind of fucked here because we made it all open source, and now people know how to build language models, and now they're doing it for themselves. How do we put this back in the box? And everyone's going, I don't know, but I'm going to quit. So I don't go down in flames. I'm going to cash out my stock right now.
I'm going to expatriate to Costa Rica and fucking disappear off the grid now. Thank you and goodbye.
Good luck, right? Yeah. And so I think we're just heading in kind of a dangerous place. Not to redundantly repeat myself repetitively and redundantly, but it's just to bring it back listening to that podcast, that AI podcast,
Yeah.
has spawned all this. Oh my God, it's amazing. Holy shit, we're doomed. And, in the middle of that all happens in the span of like 5 seconds. And then I'm like, all right, in there is how do we manipulate the technology to fit society rather than having the technology make society, right?
Fucking
So
buys of the machine shit.
It's going to be heavy days moving forward, man. Heavy days.
I will say on a very, very pragmatic standpoint, I had someone asking me this recently who's not a photographer, they're not an artist, and they were like, hey, with this burgeoning AI, like, how are you feeling, like, your industry, your job security, your proposition? And I'm like, for me, there's the macabre part of me that loves this. Because I'm like, now the fact that I'm such a humanist, the fact that I'm so focused on process, the fact that I do everything by hand, the fact that I'm going to be looked at in 5 years' time as an artisan photographer. Oh,
Right.
that old world method that no one else is following anymore. Did you know he edits by hand? Holy fucking shit. I think there's only 12 people left who do that.
He still uses a camera.
A camera and a tablet, eyes, hands, fucking clicks, reality. Like, so I'm going to just delve deeper into that. So I'm like, this is fucking great because now this just enhances my sub niche. Like, if you wear red in a sea of red, no one sees you. If you're wearing red in a sea of fucking black, you're all anyone sees. Right. So I'm like, this is great. I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops with my own fucking voice and my own meat suit about what I'm doing and where I'm doing it. And then there are going to be those people who are like, hey, I'm tired of the artificial generative bullshit. Wait, we're going to be president of space together? Take my fucking money. Let's go. So I'm here for it.
Believe me, I've made body armor out of phone books, and I'm just duct taping that shit around because when that apocalypse comes, man, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to have my plastic karambit out of my safe, and I'm going to throw whiskey stones at people. It's going to be pandemonium.
See, maybe you shouldn't give that stuff away. I think this is actually part of your how you protect the castle kind of thing now.
Going to weaponize whiskey stones. There's a reason why I bought a house in an elevated position. Right? You got to come up the hill. I'm going to make you run out of wind before you get to me.
Half-pound circular ice cubes that were meant to chill whiskey without watering it down.
I'm there like a sling like David and Goliath, just ripping it at people. Take that, ChatGPT. Take that, Tesla robot.
The people who are left watching, they're still like, how did we get to this?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Did you have plans tonight?
ADHD men just finding their way down a meandering path.
There was a moment, I think, I don't know, it must have happened a couple hours ago. We're actually being vulnerable and we're having a good, healthy conversation. And now, this is what you get, people. This is the mask is off. Yep. You want more of this? Again, I will trade you blue Post-its, ASMR, blue Post-its. You start promoting this. Now, if this is content that you want, if this is content that you want to see and you want to hear, send me some topics. Like, throw a topic in the chat. What do you want us to talk about? Like, I'll do it.
We're actually going to, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, if you need to use the restroom or go actually have a life, go right ahead.
No, I was just going to say that you and me are planning on recording a couple of episodes or just conversations while we're in Pennsylvania together. So people, if you want to hear about any specific topics while Matt and me are actually in a physical space together, possibly taking, horse tranquilizer levels of marijuana and or psychedelics that are not legal in most states. Psilocybin's great here in Colorado, so I can say this without any fucking oversight whatsoever. But let us know, because that will be an interesting unfolding, and maybe we could fold like origami cranes while we do it and just make it a multi-medium kind of event.
What I was thinking about, right? So I've got the DJI Mic 2. DJI, come on. So these...
DJI, we're supplying these microphones for us.
We throw a microphone on, play a couple of games of pool, and just have the conversation and just record the whole thing
in literal real time.
And then we'll set up a camera, transmit it, do the whole thing, and I think that would be disastrously fun.
The problem for me is this time I'm not going to be able to blame my shitty pool playing on 17 Guinness. I'm just going to have to own the fact that I'm a shitty pool player.
No, that's what I had to do. And again, for people that don't know what we're talking about, month or so ago down in Pennsylvania, Johnny was doing the Viltrox workshop, and we all stayed at a house together. It was me and Johnny and Pratik and Nikki, and we were playing pool late one night after far too many drinks. And Pratik was stone sober. I was kind of mid-level. You were not. And we were all playing various levels of horrible pool, except for Pratik, who people don't know this about him. Total shark, total pool shark.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I thought I was an okay player. I'm going to miss a shot here and there, but I know angles, right? Physics degree, I can do this stuff. It hurt me that Pratik was laughing at me so much because he's such a kind man.
Yeah.
And his biting wit and sarcasm and said in ways that just cut to the bone in the nicest possible way while he's destroying you. He's a masterful human being and a hell of a pool player. He hurt my feelings. He hurt my feelings.
I am happy to say that I was emotionally numb enough where I felt nothing. So I walked away with no psychological scars whatsoever from that outing.
We were playing, well, I don't know what happened. You said, hey, Matt, play something, play DJ. So I started playing, I don't know, whatever playlist I had on. It was like Bill Withers or something, right?
Yeah.
And you were like, fuck that. Throwing on Norwegian death metal. It's like 3 a.m. and we got an early morning and we're playing pool and you're just sitting there rocking back and forth. And it's just like double bass, double bass, double bass, double bass, crunchy guitars. And I was like, oh, I hear inside the skull is now outside the skull. And I'm hearing all of that. It was
my auditory production of my inner state.
It was amazing. It's amazing. Good time. So yes, we'll do that again. But if there's anybody still listening to this or watching this, send us some topics and we'll talk about it while we're there next week. All right. Speaking of next week, again, we're just going to kind of cap this off. Beyond the Portrait, is it full yet? Or you got any spots left?
It is. I think there's a couple of spots left. So if you are still watching this, or if you watch this after the fact and either somehow you made it to the end of this or you just scrubbed through to the last 2 minutes like you would do to just get the sort of synopsis of things, there are a couple of spots left. Drop me a note. I'm doing some special pricing if you decide you want to fill one of those seats. Nanlite is subsidizing some of the cost. They're being kind to me in that way. So drop me a note. There is that. And then there is the Peculiar Conference, which is taking place in Baltimore a few days after that. And I will be attending and doing this Mark Seliger style portrait setup on the show floor for a couple of days. And then I will be teaching. Yeah, I decided to integrate that in. Everyone, for those of you who don't know me, I always work at conferences and I don't have to work this conference. And the idea of just having to be an attendee and having nothing to do for 2 days was actually making me more anxious than having to do literally everything. So I'm like, how can I add to my plate when I finally have a chance to fucking rest? And what I decided was I'm going to do this Seliger style Oscar setup, crazy fucking set, crazy lights, photograph the educators, photograph some VIPs, photograph some everyday folk like myself as well, and just see where it fucking goes. So that should be fun.
I think that's amazing, because there's really no one doing anything like that. And we, as photographers, like to have good pictures of ourselves, right? And
it's a nice thing.
And it's one thing to like kind of shoot each other when we're at conferences and you kind of get a decent photo and it's fun. But to have something that is like top level production, like a Seliger thing where you can really come in and bring out that emotion and look really cool and have it lit perfectly, you never kind of get that. Even at conferences, right? We have the shooting bays and whatnot. And that's all good. Yeah. But it's not the same thing. Right?
No, we have all of the ingredients and no one's actually cooking. So I'm planning to fucking cook and cook I shall. So it should be good.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the Peculiar Conference, I'm not going to be able to be there, but it's going to be an amazing conference. Just meeting all those people last time. What a really cool community that is. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm super stoked for that. So yeah, I'll be on the East Coast for almost 11 or 12. And I'm planning on going up to New York on the 5th on election day to do some street photography because I have a feeling that the human condition is going to very much be on display. So I have a long history of documenting protests and sort of getting into the respective social war zones of things here relative to the first world. So I will throw myself into the mix and hopefully get some sweet wide angle shit that maybe rooters will pick up, which will give me a chance to go on vacation to South America or Europe for a while. So,
You know what? And if you don't want to do that, just make it an AI. Just make it an AI. You know what? I already voted early, and I don't have anything going on that week. So maybe I'll join you. Maybe I'll get back to the photojournalism stuff. So
yeah, you
I think
should.
it's going to be.
I think it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a nutty day.
Yeah, exactly. The mood, the people, the interactions. I think it's going to be a palpable piece of history. So I'm like, if we can get into the mix for that and actually be part of that and archive a piece of that, I think it's actually really, really fucking significant and powerful.
All right, I'll bring a couple of reflective vests and some hard hats, and we'll weasel our way into something.
Well, I was just going to say, are you kidding? It's the ultimate social engineering. I'm like, no, we got to make sure that wall's reinforced. Yeah, get the fuck out of the way. Do I need to get Tony? Do I seriously have to go get fucking Tony right now? He's going to eat your liver. Get the fuck out of the way.
I love it. Oh, it's gonna be a couple of days, isn't it? All right, buddy. I'm gonna go. We are topping out at 3 hours and 22 minutes. I think it's a record for even us. But I will talk to you soon, man. Thank you for so much, and I'll holler at you later.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you soon, boss. Later.